All right, so this fucking thing is on now. One moment, let me go mute this thing. Because I gotta pull out the pop-out chat in case anybody watches this barren wasteland I call a channel.
That's a hell of an entrance. All right, so
Yeah, I'm the most
thing.
I'm the most entertaining person on the planet, and this is the most entertaining stream that's on fucking now. So everybody just drop their shit and just do it.
Well sold.
There we go. So anyway, I am Insanity is Free on Twitter. This is going to be a regular Sunday bullshit thingy, and I'm going to be calling it Shooting Shit Sunday or Shit Shooting Sunday. I'm not exactly sure what order I put that in. Yeah, there we go. Shit Shooting Sunday. And this will be part of my new vlog series that I'm going to start up getting people engaged with the ideas of anarchy and, you know, probably also Chaos Emeralds and industrial music, because fuck everything. Anyway, this will be the first Shit Shooting Sunday, and it's related to a group message that that started on Twitter, related to how best to convert people to anarchy. Well, get them to look at the ideas anyway. So, without further something or other, I'm going to toss it to a random person, basically whoever gets it first, and they can introduce themselves. So there'll be like 5-minute introduction, and then we'll slam into the subject and try and get this discussion as chaotically controlled as possible. Anyway, random person, go.
Hi, I'll go first then. Hi, I'm Nina. I am Brazilian, and I'm on Twitter as Estadocida, Nina Maria Bastiat. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm an anarchist, I'm a voluntarist, and I speak Portuguese too. So that's it.
Well, tell us something about like your background, maybe like something that that could set you apart from the proverbial crowd. Like, what led you to anarchy?
Yeah, why are you an anarchist?
My incredibly communist country led me into anarchism, into anarchy.
The classic route.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a nurse. Let me see what else. Yeah, I mean, it's Brazil. It's corruption. Government doesn't work at all. It will never work, never have. And I don't know. Maybe you Americans won't understand that because at some point, maybe your government worked, you know, but Brazil, it doesn't. It's just corruption, and there's nothing else to do but to end it.
Oh, believe me, this government never worked either. The government of America was always corrupt, and it always will be because it's run by banksters.
One could say it works like a champ.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't work for the people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's working for a specific set. And
exactly as intended.
All right, so that introduces Nina. Pleasure having you on. Who's next?
That'll be me. I'm Conan, son of Conan. I am just an anon fella who hates the state and has found a way to minimize my status footprint, if you will, by agorist living, counter economics. And my goal, which is why I'm so excited to be on the show today, because my entire point of the reason I even know you find people is to, one, learn more about anarchism and voluntarism, and also to help people from the same area where I came from to understand agorism and voluntarism and anarchism. That's the whole reason I do all of this. It's all that because, you know, memes and shit posting, right? But yeah, so that's why I'm very excited to be here and hear what everybody has to say today.
All right, very good. So, and pleasure to have you on as well. I guess it's up to Bird and Lupinate over here.
I'll go.
All right, cool.
All right, so I'm Lupinate. This is my first ever stream as well. So thanks for popping my cherry, guys. I'm an American expat living in London at the moment and kind of on the front lines of SJW warfare, you might say, given the fact they've started arresting people for their tweets. So I don't tweet. I mean, Cameron said it best. Too many tweets make a twat. Anyway, I became an anarchist thanks to, well, in part yourself, mate. But also a few other people that I know. About 4 or 5 years ago, I've always been a libertarian. And my view is that people just they aren't taught logic these days. They're taught what to think, not how to think. So I've started writing quite a lot on how to think and how reality works and how rights work. And I'm trying to get as much of this published as quickly as possible before I have to start working again. And now that I've got a bit of downtime due to my own circumstances, I'm going to start doing a lot more video blogs and also writing as well, trying to get all of this out there. So you'll be able to find my stuff on Steemit under Anarchic Wolf. That's pretty much me at the moment. I guess it's off to you, Bird.
All right. Well, this is my first stream as well. I am Birdarchist, at Birdarchist on Twitter. I go by Bird. I am one half of the Friends Against Government podcast, the Bagcast, with my co-host at Car Campit, who could not be here today because he is recovering from a hangover. So rest in peace, Car. I am not an anarchist, though I do quite a bit of shilling for them. I consider myself a voluntarist and a minarchist in the Nazikian fashion. But for all intents and purposes, here I am probably in 99.999% of agreement with everyone else in this discussion. And I would like to minimize and or get rid of entirely the state as much as possible. And we are here to talk about that. It's been a very interesting few days over Twitter. Some people that I know very well have, for various reasons, turned to the libertarian framework. And I've been taking note of it, and it's interesting that we have chosen today to do this, because even in my own personal life, I'm starting to see people switch over more and more. So that is me. Check the podcast out, everybody. Check the Twitter out, and let's just get into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of those more free-formy kinds of discussions. I'll have general topics to grapple with, but it'll mostly be up to guests to make it interesting. And yeah, like, by the way, Lupine, do you want to plug anything you're involved in before we get started?
No, at the moment, it's a very thin scene over here in the British Isles. So, unfortunately, I'm not involved in any groups or anything like that. But I mean, I've already plugged my. I plugged my Steemit already. I'm on Anarchic Wolf.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's about the limit for me. I've also written a few things, I think, for Time to Free Us, which was a joint venture.
Yeah.
And hope to contribute a few more once I've finished them off.
Yeah, well, look forward to having them. That's a site that I work with, and like I managed it very efficiently a while back, but it's sort of seen some cobwebs lately. I'll be firing a lot of that back up, and anybody who's interested in a contributor account, let me know, because it's basically going to be, if I can get it to work, it's going to be a hub of anarchist content, and it's going to be fairly open and free form. Like any anarchist who has content that or libertarian, small government as well, who has content that opposes the state, just hit me up, or just wants to explain something to people so that they might be like less in favor of the state, then hit me up. I'm at Insanity is Free on Twitter, have been for fucking 9 years, unfortunately. And you can find me there. And yeah, so let's get going. Best ways, best practices, I guess, for converting people to a more freedom-minded mindset. Who's got first?
Well, one of the things that I noticed, a very close person in my life joined Discord recently, and she happened to join a Discord full of just like center lefties, I guess we're calling them. And inevitably, the taxation is theft conversation came up. I was thinking about that, and we were talking about it in the group chat that you mentioned, Jer. I really think that the earworm is one of the most powerful weapons that we have. If we want to start from anywhere, that earworm, taxation is theft, seems to get people thinking. Seems to get people reacting. I don't know if any of you have had that experience in your lives, but man, if you don't get a reaction from taxation is theft one way or another, then some people just can't be swayed.
You get a reaction from taxation is theft in Britain. That's given. That is definitely true. The reaction you usually get is, unfortunately, an instinctual appeal to tradition. But it is what it is. But it does. I'll be quite frank. There are people over here who know that to be true, particularly in small businesses, I find. The ones that I've dealt with directly, they hate the tax man. Everybody fucking hates the tax man.
That's a key in, man. That's a key in.
And it is a very good in, particularly in the States. Because, and I think, to be quite frank, you got to tailor this to every region. In Britain, you can focus on free speech. In America, you take your pick, to be quite frank. It's basically, you could take a shotgun and hit 8 targets at once.
Sometimes some would say literally.
Just by talking about shotguns.
Yeah, right.
And like beyond the normal taxation is theft things, like, you know, just criticizing some sacred cow, like the cops or the troops, like the thin blue line is police protecting police. That's gotten a lot of people upset. You know, calling them cockroaches or badged orcs or something like that, or, you know, calling troops welfare whores, because basically a lot of them get into it so that they can get government money and assistance with their education and whatever, you know, things like that, like really appealing to the thing that people might not think about, but might get their brain moving in the right direction. That seems like a good rhetorical approach.
If we're talking strategy, by the way, pick your targets.
Yeah, definitely.
That's rule 1.
I just wanted to add something to the taxation is theft conversation. This week or last week, Cardi B said something about taxes and got everybody on the conversation for some reason. All sides, all of a sudden was interested on what the government was doing with taxation, with their tax money. And it was interesting to see that, how, you know, just a simple Instagram message from her just got everybody really interested, even though it died now. It got everybody, you know, questioning.
Cardi B.
I mean, she is in the hip hop game, so all you got to do is wait until she gets indicted on tax evasion, and then, you know, I mean, and then the whole conversation starts up all over again. You have people screaming "Free Cardi B" and taxation and theft at the same time. I mean, hey, you call me crazy, but just watch. Give it 2 years. Let's see what happens.
No, I agree. I mean, she did raise the question, and everybody kind of asked with her, you know. Not everybody's like saying, it is theft, I know. No, everybody's kind of like, that's true.
Yeah,
what are they doing?
Something to think about.
Yep. There's a good point that you brought up, Lupinit, that we have to pick our targets. That's just something before we went into this, I was thinking about it. If we want to pick our targets, maybe we have to pick by group. Because, Jer, one of the things you said was trying to take down the police argument, the people who worship the police and stuff. So we have to go with, I guess, the conservative targets, or
the best one. I mean, they've left themselves open to this one, to be quite frank. There's a meme I shared on G+, which it's basically a Tom Hanks sitting on the bench with the box of chocolates, saying, "Please select a box of chocolates. They'll kill your dog."
Yeah, right.
That on its own is just fucking gold.
Yeah.
Because it says it so easily. And there is so much evidence of them doing it.
So do we want to focus on conservatives first?
if I could, and I think there's a real smart point here. I'm pretty sure everyone can agree with me. I can't think of a better piece of info ammo to throw at someone who worships police as Mr. Rayford. The man is well spoken. The man is intelligent. The man is absolutely sincere, and he's the first person that'll tell you that he has blood on his hands, and every cop that's doing this has blood on their hands for the clear, logical reason. I think it's a compelling argument to people who try to say, well, "You don't know what it's like because you didn't do that." Oh yeah, here, this guy did it. He can't sleep at night anymore.
Right.
Or Dale Brown of the Vipers Threat Management in Detroit. I always bring him up because it's like, oh, you think you can't police without being a thug? Well, look at these people who emphasize de-escalation. Look at these people who will take a very small fee to physically walk people into their businesses. That's impressive to me. We just lost 2 people, looks like, though. Y'all still here?
Yeah, they're down.
I am.
We can, but let's focus on. They'll come back. Let's focus on taking it as groups come along then, because we'll go for conservatives first. Because I always feel like, I mean, liberals have their own sacred cows, right? Progressives have their own sacred cows. I should say.
Yeah.
Shit, the police one that's one of the biggest ones, right? You got to get if we're going to the end of this whole thing. That's the biggest one. Well, the military is, but damn, you'll find a whole lot of at least libertarians in the military. So maybe we just go with police first.
I'll be honest. Let's leave the military to one side for a bit, simply because, like you said, they wind up becoming libertarian, and once you're libertarian, 6 months, man, it's 6 months to voluntarism anyway. So just give him just time. Give him time.
I mean,
that's all we ask.
You need to look no further at how the military goes when it comes to political ideologies or lack thereof than to see how many people supported Ron Paul and who. So
yeah.
Okay, but I would say it's 6 months to anarchy, and also it's 6 months into outright crazy.
Yeah. You guide them.
Yeah.
That's why we're here to help.
Yeah, but see, and that's the other part of it, though. I mean, you can say that the military, and this is one of the things that I get into it with some people about. You can say that the military sort of trends voluntarist after the bullshit that they go through, but like, yeah, maybe more than other classes by percentile, but there's still a very small percent of them that don't just come back, demand their benefits, say that anybody who disagrees is anti-American and anti-human, and, say, my God, my country, I'll follow orders, blah, blah, here at home, too. I mean, a lot of them do come back fucked up, but a lot of them were just cooks, and they never saw war either. And so, like, the idea that the bulk of the troops are convincible of libertarianism just by taking a hands-off policy, I would disagree with that. I would say that some of them are, and those people should be left to trend if they look like they're trending. But the rest of them, they're going to need a hard shake to realize that what they did was wrong, because it's a justification game a lot of the time.
I'll tell you what, one of the strongest arguments that you can use against somebody who's a military worshiper is someone from the military. So at least we have people who are going in our direction, and that number might be increasing slowly, but I mean, every single one of those people is an argument against it. And
right, I think you're both correct. I think there's two sides to that. Like you said, there is percentage wise, a larger number of people that tend to lean more libertarian, more pro individual choice. But that doesn't, and they are a great argument to, against status, but that doesn't mean that they won't come to your college and shoot your kids in the yard. You know what I mean? Stop telling these people that this won't happen, because I'm here to tell you that it will.
Yeah, I tend to go with something along the lines of the state is not your friend. People need to learn this. It is something ingrained in them from day one when they go into the system, public education. They learn the state is your friend, the state is there to help you, the state is there to protect you and keep you safe. Think of it like your mom and your dad, just bigger. And it's a massive lie, and we know it, but...
Well, And that's partially because of the school system imported from
Yeah.
Prussia, and also partially because the entire idea of school right now is to be a babysitting service to keep the kids away from the parents learning what the state wants them to learn, and also to keep the parents productive workers for the state machine of oppression. So essentially, you end up with this paradigm where kids come back with new information, and parents had very little to do with it. And like, I think a lot of that could be solved by parents just taking a more active role in their kids' lives, and telling them that maybe the Pledge of Allegiance to like, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United Corporate States of America. Like, maybe that's not the best thing to do every day, and maybe you should enact your rights to just sit it out. Things like that, little things, just pushing people in the right direction.
You got to
I
get
know,
someone there
and-
though, Jared. First, they have to be raising their kids that way. I mean, that's why we're here. But once you get the kids to teach, I'm sure it's not that difficult to hammer in the good points. But we got to get the parents first.
You got to big up the bad that the state is doing at all times, because they won't do it. They won't mention it. And the main media with them won't either, because this is why. Yeah, exactly. And this is why, look at Parkland. The whole thing has turned into this big-ass gun control conversation when it should be a massive corruption investigation. Because the cops did nothing 39 times over. The FBI did nothing. The local school board had arranged a system with the cops to keep minorities out of jail if they were doing actual crimes. And they escalated that from misdemeanors all the way up to felonies, and then are surprised that this kid kills a load of people in a school. It's mind-boggling.
These are points that even modern conservatives would agree with you about, but I'm not sure it's because they're committed to the truth or it's because they want to avoid the gun conversation. But either way,
use both.
Those things. Yeah.
Both are valid arguments, and that's the point.
So then I guess we could take it from this direction then. Are we suggesting that we can take this step by step, or are we trying to draw people into it full on, teaching people about libertarianism and anarchy? Are we going slowly, step by step, or are we dropping them in? And I know some people would prefer one way or the other.
Both.
No, both.
What do you think?
Both. Do both. Why limit yourself to one strategy?
Well, no, I'm per individual. Per individual.
Well, yeah,
do both at the same time.
because here's the thing. Like, I'm not anymore, but I used to be a Christian, and one of the things that I learned in how to best get people thinking in terms of Christianity is that each individual has their own path to Jesus, and you've got to let them walk that on their own. And I think it's the same with anarchy. I think that's why Christian anarchy works so well, is because they know how to let people walk their own path to anarchy. And I think that it's something that people have to sort of generally realize there's something that needs to dramatically change. And then we say, hey, we've got this. It's sort of like showing them the product on the shelf. You were going to say something, Nina?
Yeah, my advice is always look at how you got here. For me, it took 3 years to go from full SJW to, what I am now, and to what I know now. And even though a lot of facts were presented to me at the same time, it took me 3 years to digest them. It's not that easy, and I don't think it's a matter of intellect or access to information. It's a matter of breaking down everything that you know. I was raised in a very socialist place in which Brazil, they teach you in school to love Castro and love Cuba and love socialism and communism. Literally, capitalism is the devil. And I was raised with that. Those were 17 years in school that I had to break down. It takes a long time. So for me, I used the path that I used that worked on myself. So I don't know if that's how you guys go with this.
You considered yourself an SJW, so I guess we put you on the left, right? If we're putting you somewhere, if we had to put you somewhere, Nina, you put yourself on the left. You used to have been.
Absolutely.
And then Jeremiah, I remember we were talking a while ago where you, I don't know if you still think this way, maybe you do. You used to consider yourself a neoconservative.
Oh, I was a blind fucking bloody neocon. I wanted a glass Iran. I said Bush did nothing wrong. I was a fucking faggot, yo.
So with that, Jeremiah, how did you enter? Did you drop in, or was it a slow process, 3-year process?
I started to realize how wrong I was because, you know, I was being stupid,
Quickly,
but
though?
I wasn't stupid. What?
Quickly or slowly?
Oh, it was fucking slow, yo, because here's the thing. Like I was getting voting age and oh god, it's so fucking terrible. I was getting voting age and like my mother and I got into this conversation. And I was starting to not be as much of a neocon because I was realizing that I was just saying these things because I was parroting somebody else. And that realization was like way previous, and like basically that I wasn't a good person. I was just parroting. And like I basically had years and years of high school to realize how wrong I was about everything, and to realize that maybe I didn't support the left or the right. And then I get to be voting age, and I'm like, you know, I'm talking to my mother, and she's like, you know, I asked her, I don't really feel like I'm a Republican or a Democrat because I don't support war, but I also don't support, you know, what did I say? It was something along those lines, and she turned me onto the Libertarian Party, and for like a year and a half, I was a Gary Johnson supporter, and then for a year past that, I sort of slid into Ron Paul. And past Ron Paul, like when he got the shaft, the what is it, GNC,
Phrasing,
something
mate.
like
Phrasing.
that. Yeah, but like it was basically a transition between like stupid kid neocon with also stupid kid to Ron Paul to to Gary Johnson to Ron Paul to anarchy.
So okay, so for the two of you, then there's a similar path, even though there's a very unsimilar starting point. And this is what I was asking.
3.
This is make it 3.
Make it 3.
I guess I'm the only one who dropped in, but I always considered myself a libertarian, so I don't. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I always considered myself a libertarian. I never actually voted until 2012 when I wrote in Ron Paul.
Okay.
But it was, and to be honest, it was that year that I wound up eventually, the year after, I think, one or the other, I wound up converting to full-on anarcho-capitalism.
So it took a decent amount of time for everyone. And this is why...
it took a lot of debate, too.
Yeah,
it was non-stop debate that made it happen.
This is why
To be fair, I hear all of you guys talking about these long, difficult paths that you took through basically just step-by-step critical thinking and observation to get to you know, your different varying forms of it, basically what amounts to individualism or acknowledging the individual right.
Precisely.
I kind of, especially hearing about everything that Nina had to go through, it makes me realize kind of how fortunate I am. Because I mean, I don't know, baby. I've been anti-state since '98. I was 14 years old. I read Anatomy of the State, and that was a wrap. I was already an agorist.
And I'll be so lucky.
You were lucky. You were exposed to the right material early on. Yeah. It's easier to do it if you learn young.
Right. And my dad, he wasn't like anti-state, but he was question all things is what he taught me as a child. Always question everything. You know, question me. I know I'm right. That's my dad was kind of a dick. But you know,
so this is perfect. I mean,
I count myself as blessed hearing about everything you guys have had to go through where you are.
Well, this is exactly what I'm trying to get at here. Is I've wanted to have this conversation for a long time. And Conan, we can get to your example because I mean that one's easier almost. If you have a parent who's encouraging you to do it, that one's easier. But for the 3 people who it took a long time to get there. The reason why I asked before if you drop people in as opposed to take them along slowly, I think that is a dichotomy. I don't know if you could do it at the same time. Maybe you can, but the fact of the matter is it took you guys a while. It took you guys a while.
This is the thing. When you start breaking down, it's a psychological problem. Basically, every single person works off of. Think of it as a computer model. This is how I've been interpreting it, at least. Everybody has this computer model that they work from that takes in the data that they see and hear and experience in any way, shape, or form. That model is never going to be the same for any single person. That is the very basics of like how people work, because nobody gets the same data.
So I would suggest a two-pronged attack here. You say you got to be careful about going, and you make a valid point. But so what I say is, in times of peace or relative peace, for whatever that is, you would use the philosophical anarchist approach. Things like explaining economics and morally how it's not morally right. But so that you have those soft, subtle things where you ease in. But then you also have something that unfortunately the left has been very good at, which is, it sounds trashy, but it is what it is. You have to capitalize on tragedy. When these horrible, horrible things happen, this is when you need to grab someone and shake them and say, you see what these people are doing with your money. You see what you're supporting. You know what I mean? That's what you do. You have a steady presence. You be there to answer questions. And when shit hits the fan, you have to scream, "I told you so," as loud as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Many people.
You got to do the rageaholic. Fuck you, I was right dance.
But yeah.
Do the rageaholic. Fuck you, I was right dance. That's the best way of showing it.
You were going to say something, though, Nina?
Yeah, I think he said something about the left is very successful on shaking and throwing a hasty fit, and being very loud. I think what the left is best at right now, as in the past decades or so, is grabbing young people's minds and molding it. This is why I made like several tweets about take your kids out of school, public school, take them away, because it is brainwashing machine. That's all there is to it. There's nothing left in there.
Indoctrination center.
It is. There is nothing, absolutely nothing left there. Maybe some math, maybe some language, and that's it. That everything else is about leftism and indoctrination and socialism. There is no way that you can have all of these children going out marching without these teachers behind them. They're not going by themselves. I've been to one of those and I've seen it. It's all a bunch of 12 to 16-year-old and children, and their adults with them are their teachers, school teachers. They are indoctrinators.
Yeah, of course.
They're not. Yeah. They're not teaching nothing else other than just turning these kids into their, we call it in Brazil, massa de manobra, just numbers.
And Sprint, if you want to come back in, you're under William right now, so it's just so you know.
Wow.
Hi, sorry.
You'll never be able to find his address because he lives in the ocean, so.
You. Fuck. Wrong email account.
Well, it's your choice. If you want to stay William, you can.
I don't want to stay William. People
Okay.
know
Can we
my
call
real
you
name.
Bill?
Okay, well then pop out, change your name legally, and then come back in.
Right. There was one thing I was trying to consider.
Luckily, you have the most basic white milk name ever.
Is my name showing up too?
Hey, Billy.
Hey, William was both a bastard and a conqueror. So let's get to
I only keep emphasizing the point of slow versus fast because I'm just not convinced that they can be done at the same time. Although Conan, what you say is really is probably the best way to do it. I mean, you're still William Spren.
Bird. God.
I want to say that I agree the most with Conan's point. There has to be sort of take it slow, take it slow, take it slow. Oh, now's our moment. Jump. I like that idea. I will go
capitalize.
Capitalize. And I don't even think it's like remotely crashing.
I see what you did there.
Vote here, Minarchist.
Well, I mean, but I don't even think that's remotely trashy.
No,
sorry, too many people are talking at once, guys.
I don't think it's trashy at all to capital. I mean, air quotes, capitalize on an incident, and it doesn't have to be a disaster like a school shooting. It can be, oh my God, they took $1,000 extra out of my tax. Oh, you see what I'm, or anything. I don't care. It doesn't matter what.
Yeah, but do it with reason, because that's the
Yes,
thing
do
about
Right.
politicizing tragedy is always bad, because both
Yes,
neither
yes.
side have a solution. But if you say something, for instance, to a school shooting about self-ownership and, like, you know, respecting personal
Your
responsibility.
friend.
Yeah, your friend.
Oh,
If you say something about self-ownership, respecting humanity, respecting dignity, and if you say that if this person was treated better, if they had better,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
health treatment and shit, like, if you actually have solutions, then
Right.
talk. If you don't,
There's
then
two.
shut the fuck
There's
up.
two different
Amen.
places that you can go with the capitalizing on tragedy. I don't even know if I'm with that phrase, but we know what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
either
Let's
go
call
the,
it.
See,
what do you want to
problem
call
is
it?
to try and capitalize on a tragedy, or to try and basically use an appeal to emotion, is
Yes.
a two-edged sword, because it's going to bite the left in the ass. It's already doing it. They're
Yes.
already basically
Well,
experiencing the fallout of their own
Jeremiah-
unintended consequences.
Jeremiah says that's what Jeremiah said is, if you're going to go the route of taking the opportunity to talk to people to the
need to have
extremes
solutions.
during the tragedy, do it with tact. Do
Yeah.
it with consideration. Do
With
it
dignity.
for the movement. Now, if you're not a part of the liberty movement, but you're still a libertarian, then go fuck off. I don't know. Chill. Just chill. You'll have your time. But if you want to advance the movement, do it with tact. There's no reason why after a school shooting you have to do, if everybody, we should arm teachers. You don't have to do that. Nobody has to do that.
Well,
do it
to
with
be quite
tact.
frank, I agree with that principle.
I do too, but
I'm
the way that
freaking
people say it-
everybody.
I don't
Yeah.
though, because arming teachers in a public school setting who are already well known to snap is a poor choice. What is a
Well,
better choice?
Yeah.
What is a better choice is to abolish public schooling, because that's the real problem, that people are forced to go to a place that they don't want to go, be indoctrinated into things that they don't want to be indoctrinated in, and then they're bullied by their peers because they don't conform to a conformist system. They're treated like garbage, and then they find out-group solutions for in-group problems. And this collectivist bullshit is
You
the
nailed it,
real
dude.
problem.
So
But
is that
Jer-
where we
Jer-
would go? Is that where you would go with that after an event like this happens? You'd go.
I would
what
abolish
happened
public schooling. I would say, you know, don't fuck unless you're responsible for your kids, you know, and be there for your kids, you know, talk
Maybe
to
it
them.
convinces
Don't,
people.
yeah.
Listen, there's one problem with the basically trying to go straight into abolish public schools. People won't make the link. You
Yeah.
got to
Well,
lead them
yeah.
there. We've kind of done that through this conversation, because you brought up a very valid point. It is the public schooling that is the
If
real
they
problem.
listen long enough, you can make the link. But I don't. Being provocative like that, people will just not listen.
Well,
So
right. That's why
I
you don't
appreciate
start
you.
with that.
Okay, good. No, that's what I was asking.
yeah.
Is we're leading with that. No, that could be the end of the conversation.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
it
the
should be
end
the middle.
game.
It should be the
Okay,
middle,
it
like
should be in the middle.
because the middle of the conversation would allow it to like devolve or evolve into solutions instead
Right.
of devolving into I was rightism.
Right.
Exactly. That's
To me,
like the Socratic method, for example.
yeah.
Allow a person to lead themselves to their own logical conclusion as they go through it step by step. Instead of trying to convince them of an argument, allow them to come to the conclusion themselves through self-analysis.
There are two.
And
Bingo.
it's a lot easier for someone to believe something when they thought it was their idea to begin with. Ask any traditional married woman, she's going to tell you that's how you lock it down.
And before we get too far into this, Sprin, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself at the beginning, so introduce yourself for like 5 minutes, and like, is there anything that you have to say about this stuff?
How are the tides?
How are the tides? The tides are good, I think. Can you hear me? Hello, test.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good.
Loud and clear.
Perfect.
Introduce yourself. Who is Sprin?
I'm Sprin. I'm apparently a really good retweeter, according to Bird.
He's
That's a hell of a
the
college.
key to the whole movement.
I think the best thing you can do, just retweet other people's content.
Well, all right, but what about you? Like, introduce yourself.
Well, I live on a boat. Very bad about talk. I'm very bad with talking about myself.
Well, what do you believe? What are you, an anarchist? Are you a libertarian? You know,
I'm a libertarian, obviously, with anarchist tendencies. You know, more freedom's always good.
And how'd you get there?
How'd I get there? Just sort of ended up here.
Spring's case is the last case.
Mountain of information, mate.
Spring's case of the I just woke up here. That's the last one we'll take.
Oh man, a few words.
It just sort of happened. There wasn't I'm listening to everyone else talk about their story.
You know what?
And I'm like, well,
I'm glad because I like it. I think it works.
Maybe you and I.
I absolutely love it.
Maybe you and I are similar, Sprin. Did you become? I don't know if you became a libertarian. Did your libertarianism strengthen when you got on Twitter?
No, it was strong before Twitter.
Whoa! So
the force is strong with this one.
You really are just the man from nowhere.
Wait. It was strong before Twitter, but I thought I was the only one until after Twitter.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting.
Interesting. There are a few.
I can somewhat agree with that. I didn't realize how.
There were like a few YouTubers that I knew about, and I'm like, these guys are nuts, and I kind of like them. And then I got on Twitter and just started putting a bunch of garbage up on it, and I've met other people, and I'm like, holy shit!
Wow.
There are other crazy lunatics on the internet. Who would have thought?
I like how we were having like a serious conversation. Well, how do you convince people not to like the police? I mean, they're killing people. And Spring comes in. I like to retweet.
Look, I'm a simple guy.
I love it. I absolutely adore it.
Dude, I love the fact that when he told you to talk about yourself, the first thing you said was, "Yep, I live on a boat." And I was like, "I hate this guy, man."
I'm telling you, man. It's because he lives on a fucking boat. I haven't been able to let him live that down.
He just doesn't care. You just don't care anymore. It's brilliant. It's lovely. It's wonderful.
It's awesome. Just let go of everything.
I mean, here I am. I've spent years like with deep introspection about this shit, and here you are. Yeah, I live on a boat. I just sort of fell into it. I've always been that way. Like, God damn it.
I know, I thought I had it easy. This cat, man. He's living the dream.
Here's how it sort of happened to me. I've always had ideas. I never had words for those ideas. And eventually, I got the words for those ideas. And I'm
holy shit, he's like Murray Rothbard.
Okay, I hate to look. I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say the same thing. Like, I hate to kick you while you're down, mate, but you don't have words now.
Words now. Shit. Apparently, people are smarter than me and came before me, so I can't capitalize on anything.
No, man, you're great at typing. You're an awesome tweeter, dude. Don't even sweat it. We're just being haters.
You know, everything's a remix.
No, we're just jealous. We're just jealous, mate. We're just jealous because you got there a lot quicker.
I know. I live in a shitty townhouse in Portland. You're the man.
It might have happened to me very young because when I was young, I had a lemonade stand, and I had full-time investors for that lemonade stand.
Fuck, we just lost people again.
And then
drove them away.
And then the parents found out about my investors, and then they seized my assets.
I don't know what that means. How you have, okay?
I had kids on my block paying me money to make lemonade in exchange for money back later.
Oh, wow! Those are real investors.
Ahead of my time.
Wow, that got a bit weird.
It was a bit weird. So maybe around then is when it happened, and that was in like 5th, 6th grade.
So okay, so we'll take Sprin's case last. Sprin's case is make sure your kids have a lemonade stand with investors, and eventually they end up in anarchy.
It's a good lesson.
Actually, it's not bad.
By the way, Conan and Lupinate, we can see you, just for your information.
Beautiful.
Oh, shit.
You're revealed to the docs.
Conan's a lot less buff than I thought.
Hey, though, Conan, nice shirt, because Conan bought that shirt from my store, so if any of you want to do that too, you can. I make fucking shirts.
Product placement.
See, that's why you have to read the bio, man. I'm Conan, son of Conan. Like I'm the steroid-free one.
You know,
There's a reason he doesn't talk about me, dude. I'm not exactly him. You follow? I'm the Rand Paul of Conan the Barbarian. You follow me?
Where the fuck were we? Where
Just don't endorse Romney.
I knew this was gonna go this way.
I feel like Sprin entered.
I knew it
and
too,
he got
'cause
hit
I
with a
signed on it.
hurricane.
Yeah, but this is fine because this makes it interesting. It's not just
Yeah,
a bland
people-
ass fucking straight.
People might actually share it now.
I'm like, we're 40 minutes in a conversation and it's going very well. This is not right. This is not.
Something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Then
We're talking about ways that we can spread anarchy to the masses, and the way to do that is through the outlets that people choose to freely consume. And one of the most universal outlets of all is humor. That's a big deal. Not to mention, there's a lot to laugh at, right? Like the whole life's like a box of chocolates. You know, the police are like a box of chocolates that'll kill your dog. That's dark and funny. You know, that's pretty funny, man.
Why do you think they're trying to ban gallows humor in Britain?
That's exactly why. Thought crime.
I mean, that's because British people don't have humor.
Oh no!
Don't go there, sir. The Brits had rapier wit, sir. They will hurt your feelings, and you don't even know exactly what they're saying. So,
I'm not being funny. There's a bunch of YouTube guys currently in Britain fighting hard to try and get free speech back on the table, and I mean, Sargon of Akkad, British. Arch Warhammer, these guys are all basically fighting hard to try and push the free Dankula campaign up.
Dankula is the only person fighting right now. The other people are just sideline talking.
Well, there is one. Britisher actually did try and get a petition going to get it back into Parliament. So he's trying to go through the process. It won't fucking work. We all know it won't fucking work.
Petitions, fucking petitions suck though.
I agree. But the system is what it is, and these people believe in it. And this is part of what I was trying to explain earlier. If you've got a belief, it's part of that model I was describing. You've got to break down that model, and that's hard. That takes a lot of energy. If you don't have the model to begin with, if you're really young, it's easy to think, well, that's stupid. Let's do it a different way. If you're older, you're used to thinking a certain way. And all of us, except the ANCAPs and the anarchists out there, and basically like-minded libertarians, are going to say government is necessary. Government needs to be here. And you've got to disprove every single way that you can to say it. That's what you've got to do now. All of us have to try and find our own niche way of saying, well, that's stupid, and then call on the other guy when we're not in our niche.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why one of the things I do is like, if people ask, what I do, like most of the stuff I keep secret, because I'm not going to talk about my personal life on the internet much, like at least not yet. But like, I'll say like I collect Chaos Emeralds, and then when they ask me what that is, I'll say, well, basically I just try and get people of as many different like viewpoints as possible talking with each other, because then they'll realize that there's a common thread, and that common thread is most often that they've been abused by the system, which fucking sucks universally, and a lot of people can get behind smash the system after they realize how much it fucking sucks.
Sure.
I kind of like that. That's clever.
Yeah, that's very eloquent.
I'm in agreement. I mean, it came sooner than we thought, and it was from the wise words of Conan.
I wouldn't use the Chaos Emerald analogy because I'm not a Sonic fanboy, but other than that, I like it.
Yeah, that was the only thing. If you use that, Medicare is going to be on your ass like nobody's business.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we can all each have our own equivalent to a Chaos Emerald. Like his Chaos Emerald is my booze and winches. You know what I mean? Everyone has their own token, scalp, whatever you want to choose. Everyone has their own little collection.
Yeah. The free rifleman on Twitter has ammo boxes. He knew exactly what I meant.
Of course. Does this mean that I collect fags?
What?
Wow.
Is that what that means?
That's an awesome time for me to walk through the kitchen with my 9-year-old. Thanks for that, dude. That was wonderful.
Okay.
Listen to the podcast, man.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No, seriously, it was great. It was awesome.
You really might want to work on that acronym.
No, that's the point.
No.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna remember the Fagcast.
I am a fag.
My man, my
You
Nubian
are.
friend, I've been
Yes,
on
you
that.
are.
I've been on
And
that
deep
drill
down-
forever. They won't listen, dude. That's why in the picture you notice Conan has like the disapproving frown as he's standing behind everyone else looking around like, what the hell's going on? Like that's for real. That's very accurate. I'm just like, man, I'm just here, man. It's okay.
Yeah, whereas I'm scowling because I have anger solutions. So
Personally, I think deep down everyone has a fag in them.
I know it.
I do a weekly thread in which I put all the podcasts, and every time I Google Fagcast, a gay relationship thing shows up.
There is a different Fagcast, which probably
one of these
has
days I
more
will
rights
put
of
the
the man.
wrong. Yeah, one of these days I'll put the wrong link there. I know that.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
the other problem is that you're going to get conflict of brand.
No, it's not a problem. Not a problem. That's exactly what I want.
We're gonna, yeah.
You anarchist.
allergy.
Take the fag name back.
I want as much conflict on this
Taking it
podcast as possible. It brings the most eyes to it. And I mean, the point of the podcast was exactly what Conan said. Man, Conan, you're on it today because the point of the podcast that me and Car created was for humor. I mean, it was to inject humor into the community as much as we possibly could for the two of us. And I mean, we've seen great results with it. I don't think anybody who isn't a libertarian is listening to it, but I mean, I pointed it out to people that I know who I know have listened to it. I don't know if they're repeat listeners, but I'm doing my part, making people laugh and thinking.
That's the thing,
yes.
because the thing is that once the thing gets ubiquitous in its in group, it has the potential to leach out to the out group, and that's the thing with me is that I'm simultaneously a tanky, an anarchist, and a Nazi compared to who you talk
and a
to.
furry, and a furry.
Yeah, that too. So, it all depends on who you talk to. If you're willing to talk to people and you don't care who those people are, your in group will become an out group really, really quickly, and you can sort of start to compartmentalize certain topics for certain groups. And that's what I want to do with this, by the way. If anybody's listening to this who disagrees with me, who thinks I'm just a fucking hippie douche weirdo or whatever, then come challenge me. Come to the arena.
No, I don't think you are. Why would I challenge you? No.
You want to fight?
No.
I'll fight you. You want to go?
Oh, okay. All right,
You
square
want
up
to go,
then.
man? 1v1.
I will 1v1 someday, but right now I'm spending all my time indoors. So.
I mean, same.
Wait, what?
I mean, same.
Yeah.
I'm inside.
Except you're
floating.
Except you're floating.
Yeah, you're floating. That's the difference.
Yeah, like a butterfly. And guess what comes after that? Stinging like
A bee.
Yeah.
Bee?
No. I was gonna say death because butterflies don't live very long.
They also don't turn into bees.
Very true.
Here we go.
I mean, neither do bees. That's the whole point. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Well, Rocky didn't do either, and he lasted for a really long time, and that's why he won. So, fucking...
That's a movie, my man.
Well, yeah,
actually, no, that's a very good point. No, that's a very good point, Conan.
But float like a butterfly, sting
movies.
like a bee. But float like a butterfly, sting like a bee is only popular because of movies.
Well, no, I mean...
No, it's popular because Muhammad Ali was a great boxer.
Oh, yeah, not because it was in tons of pop culture references, but because of Muhammad Ali.
Oh, no, it's because it's Ali.
He is a pop culture reference.
He is a pop culture. He's an icon.
This has nothing to do with anarchy, by the way, but I never understood.
We're getting derailed here.
The sting like a bee thing because bees die after they sting.
Exactly.
First time I've
Cut
ever.
yourself, motherfucker.
Maybe it's a wasp.
May I interject?
Sting like a hornet.
Yeah, please do, Conan.
See, now you're getting closer. Let me make a good point, and I'm not gonna lie. I always suck up to this guy all the time, but Ben Stone's analogy of the scorpion with the 3-pronged attack. If you guys have not read that work, I strongly recommend it. But he makes the point of a scorpion being a great metaphor, because it's something that if left alone, you won't even know it's there. If you provoke it, you're not going to be very happy with the result. And also, it's an analogy for a system of dismantling the state via decay, much of what we're talking about now. So yeah, definite plug and recommend to everyone to check out Ben Stone and all of his work.
Agreed.
But yeah, that's why I like.
I'll have to check him out.
Plus, it's an arachnid, and bugs are lame, so arachnids are much cooler.
There is one thing. Actually, no, that's a fair point. The decay of the state is like, I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's so bloody obvious now. Anybody, if they're not willfully blind, can see it.
Well, the way
And
I
yet-
mean, I would say that the decay is a fairly inadequate term, considering the state is growing and still growing. So, but you know,
No, but
I
that's
agree
the
with-
problem.
I agree with
Decay
what
is
you
hard to
say.
see sometimes. If it's internal
Right.
decay,
I've seen trees
You don't
grow
see it
and
happening.
get bigger with decay within them. It's actually a danger. I was an arborist when I was a little bit younger, and so the metaphor, you got to understand, a tree can decay and rot and disease from within while it's still growing. And
Right.
this becomes a hazard because that tree then grows, and then the branch and it falls over, and now it's a big ass tree, and it falls on your house or it kills somebody. So
Right.
it's important to
Yeah.
find disease even when it's not apparent on the surface. You can have a strong, robust tree that's gonna collapse in 10 years because it's rotted out from the inside. And that's what's happening here. It's kind of like how when you drink liquor in the cold, it takes all of your heat and it pushes it out to the surface of your body. So if you stay exposed in the cold, you're going to freeze from the inside out. And that's what's happening with the state. It keeps expanding and bloating and blowing up based on not on its own success, but on its own addiction to power and control and maintain. Now that you've got it, you've got to maintain it at all costs, because look how far that fall is. It's going to happen eventually. Each thing that's happening is just you're extending it, but you're making it worse. We think that America is going to be different than Venezuela. We think it's going to be different than Brazil or Zimbabwe. It's not. It's just going to be much, much slower, more painful. And when it does happen, it's going to be much worse. But it is going to happen, just like the metaphor with the tree rotting from the inside while it still grows bigger and becomes more of a threat.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I
If you
know
take the
how
position
that
that is-
happens.
Yeah.
I know how that happens. It's that there's a phrase that goes around with a bunch of anarchists I hang out with called boiling the frog slowly.
But
where-
that's a myth.
It's not a myth. It's exactly what happens. It's
No, no.
how this
The frog
well,
thing
the,
is the-
the frog thing. Well, you can do it. You could do it with crabs.
You can do it with crabs. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crabs are fucking
So-
stupid. No,
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
turning.
but that's the.
I know.
Turn the crabs gay.
Turning the crabs.
Is that going to be our thing? Like it's Alex Jones' thing? With
Yeah.
frogs?
We're gonna
I'm
make it
gonna
a
start
thing.
my podcast. I'm going to call it Crabcast.
I mean, you could get like a lot of
I like
crabs
crab
if
gas.
you're gay, because like the diseases that spread.
Ew.
Dude.
The crab.
If we're,
TMI, mate. TMI.
Yeah, for real.
if we're taking the position that well, they just drop it, they'll come back by the time I finish making the point.
Yeah, I don't know why
Um,
they keep on dropping. Like,
they're
and they both
hanging out,
do it at
who
the
knows?
same fucking time.
If we're taking the position that this whole thing is going to end in a big shebang anyway, then why are we trying to convince anybody? Isn't that the easiest way to convince people?
Well, because first
No, not
off,
really.
if it does end poorly, then we want to be able to say we told you so. If
Yeah, but isn't that what we just said we wouldn't do?
well, I mean, but
No, we still have to do it.
you
That's the
don't,
point.
you don't just say that. Was my point. You don't just say that, and you don't.
Well,
come out
I'm
with
talking about in this very specific. It's all going to end, and it's going to be Venezuela. Isn't that the easiest way for us to just all go libertarian? don't have to convince anyone at that point.
that. I mean, at that point, yeah, maybe, but we still need to have really
If-
well-developed theories.
Well, I only say that because
If
Conan
we
said
still
that
have
he was like,
weapons.
"This is going to happen."
Yes.
If we still have weapons, Bird, that's the point. This
If.
is why this. Yeah,
Well,
this
you
is
and
why I
you
say
don't,
if.
but I'm chilling.
I mean, I don't know about you, bro, but
Yeah.
I got mine.
Well, this
and
is
I'm
the point. I'm
And
looking
I
at this
know
from a
Conan,
global
so-
not going
problem.
nowhere.
Because it's not just America that we have to convince. You got to remember,
No,
guys,
right.
this is a very
But hey, man.
interconnected network.
But if we
Right.
get 330 million people thinking the same way, then the whole rest of the world's going to follow. No, I mean, you got to focus on
Maybe.
small pockets. And I
Dude,
feel like it's
this is the
easier to
point.
convince Americans first. No.
Oh yeah, that's,
we
that's a
don't
fair
need a
point. I'm not
majority.
saying that.
You know,
don't need
no,
a majority
though.
in each region, but I
I
don't
agree.
think that's the best place to start. China, it's working for them. Capitalism works.
Right.
You can show it to them just by telling them their history.
Libertarians, or are they becoming corporatists?
And not to mention
Baizo, that phrase came from China. It means white left. It means white left. It is an insult in Chinese now. It's supposed to describe SJWs.
Oh, okay.
It is everything that they hate about the SJWs.
Okay, yeah, sure. But have you heard the recent kerfuffle over that Vice interview where that woman told them not to publish information that she was like for gender equality and married to a white man, and they did, and now everything she's doing is being shut down by the Chinese government. Have you heard that?
I'm not saying... I've heard. I know that the Chinese government's going in full crackdown on it. For Christ's sake, they banned the letter N because it's negative response.
Well, okay, sure.
So beyond ridiculous.
So you have to convince more than just small pockets, and you have to convince people actively, because you have to be able to make arguments for every possible culture to switch, or they won't. And there'll then be that culture, especially something like China with a huge central government and a huge population, which will be able to then be conquerors across the globe, and warlords will take over.
You've got to be able with this then.
Yeah, but this is
focusing on.
You got to go with who you know. This is the point.
Right.
We've got other people who can do. China, philosopher, for example. If we could get her to join in on one of these sorts of things, we could get her to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure she would be willing to as well.
I'm sure she would.
So we're going with the people who we know, who we could convince, and it would be. I mean, you'll agree with me. I mean, this is basically rhetorical, but I just, for the sake of it, some people are easier to convince than others.
Very true.
Some whole
work on the easy targets
to convince than others.
But this is one of the things about China I'm starting to see, is that they are becoming more and more belligerent against the state because they've seen how the free market has helped them. Their poverty rate from 1980 to today has gone from 90% to 10%. It fucking inverted in 30 years.
Well,
that is
when you base your entire
biggest piece of economic news that should be in existence today.
Keep in mind,
nobody talks about it.
The free market, because the market isn't free.
No, I agree, but it's still better than what they had, which was nothing.
Yeah.
Right, but you have to convince them that a little bit of control isn't good either.
I think you can rely on the fact that they'll just fall into it. If we're correct, then the more we push them in one direction, the more they will continue to push further in that direction.
Right.
I mean, exactly.
I'm more of a directionalist. I know some people are absolutists, and hey, that has its place and it works, but I don't know. Personally, I think, like we said, if some people can be convinced easier than others, go for those people, and then those people Ponzi scheme the whole thing and bring 5 people in each, and those people know people who are harder to convince. I don't,
right?
You know, and I only focus on America, I guess, because I'm an American. But at the same time, I feel like some of us are really easy to convince. Some of the cultures here are really easy to convince of it, and some are really not. But I'll focus on the easy ones.
Well,
if you want an easy target as well, Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Yeah, believe me, I have. You don't need to. Most of them speak English now.
Oh,
I mean, quite easily. I mean, anybody with a brain and a college degree has to have an English language as well under their belt in order to do proper business.
Anarchy within weeks.
And if anybody here knows Russian or Ukrainian, they'll probably get a very good step in. Now, I don't, unfortunately, apart from 1 or 2 words, just because of work. But somebody else does.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the point. I mean, if you want to convince the Russians, convince a person who speaks Russian to be a libertarian and do our part. But we all speak English, and I mean, Nina speaks Brazilian, and Brazil seems to be doing great with libertarianism. I mean,
Brazilian.
Great comparatively.
Portuguese.
I speak Brazilian.
Oh, did I say Brazilian? I'm sorry, I meant Spanish.
Oh my God.
Oh God, no! It's Portuguese.
With me.
No, it's not.
It's
Spanish.
It's odd, anyway.
Oh God.
But besides besides the fact that I said Brazilian, I feel like the point remains.
That's racist, bro.
Hey, can I just take a second to point out to everyone that that guy is the one who's not full-on anarchist who won't commit. I just want to point that out. He's like the one guy. On a serious note, you guys touched on some very good points. Go with what you know was an important point. Jeremiah pointed out that just reaching certain niches is not going to work. You need to, as much as possible, infiltrate as many different groups as you can and expose them simply to these ideas. And just as a byproduct of everything we're teaching people is logical deduction. We want them to take their own path to come to the conclusion of self-ownership. And you're going to have to approach different people different ways. So all of those points you may come together and make a really valuable point, like go with what you know. A really good example, because I tried to be smart and jot some stuff down this morning before we got started. A really good example, what I would say, is to spread agorism to people in a refined philosophical tone that are already living outside of the state structure by necessity. Like, for example, folks in the hood selling food stamps so that they can turn around to flip into cash. I know you guys think I'm going lowbrow, but I'm being straight up with you. Then you take that little bit of fiat and you turn it into something that turns into something else, and something falls off a truck somewhere. And next thing you know, you got a bunch of groceries in your house. That's someone who can understand the concept of counter economics if it's just presented by one, someone that they trust, and two, someone that they can understand. That's an important thing. That's one of the, aside from shit posting, that's one of the things I try to do online, is spread that message to diverse groups of people by appealing to different natures. So that's an example of agorism that you could use for minorities in urban areas. And then another one is to refine what's already there. Folks in the South where I'm from, man, we have this innate part, like we're connected to that dirt and those trees. Like that's a part of who we are, very much like many Native American societies are. And we also have this wild streak in us. We don't like folks telling us what to do, especially folks from some highfalutin Yankee town. So that's something that you can actually touch base on, and that's something that can resonate. Well, hey, you see how you don't like people coming and fucking with you, right? Maybe that's because you shouldn't endorse these guys going overseas and fucking with these people. That's a way you can introduce that concept and refine it into a sharper degree.
Exactly.
Very good.
I can imagine a lot of different conflicts arise from that, but yeah, that's basis right there. I still think military has to go last, but hey, do your thing. I think military goes last because it's the hardest thing people cling to.
Well, it depends
that's the easy
on
one.
who you're
No, that's
You
easy.
you think that's the easy one?
Yeah,
I'll
it's
give
the
you an
easy
easy
one.
one.
You're talking.
Luke. I'll give you an easy one. Privatized trash. That's the easy one.
That's easy. I mean, okay, but that's already technically possible and already done in some places.
Are we building a house brick by brick, or are we gonna plop it down all at once?
No, well, that's a fair point.
Brick by brick.
Brick by brick, but
Okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
That depends.
Go ahead, Sprint.
Do you have a hammer or do you have an RPG? I mean, if you got a hammer, you take it down brick by brick. If you got an RPG, you burn that motherfucker down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, mini nukes do help.
The fundamental difference between Conan and I is I said building a house and he said breaking a house down.
I did. Well, you got to tear the old one down first, right?
Sometimes we
But,
make
yeah,
so
I
much,
like
we
making
put so
stuff.
much effort into trying to convince quote unquote people. I think that we should just sometimes point out to the government, look at what it's doing. Like today I saw someone defending tariffs and it's to protect American workers, blah blah blah. And then boom, just got the news that Ivanka Trump's companies in China won't get the tariffs on her. So she's gonna be exempt. So just post it on
you're talking about making it break itself down, I am 100% with you.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
Just
though.
post it.
Again,
just post one retweet, and you go like, see, like, look at this. You don't even have to convince. Look at that. You were the dick. You were the plebeian, and they are, the monarch.
Report the real news.
Not for everybody.
Yeah, it's true. There's no easier way to convince someone to be a libertarian than to just tell the truth.
I don't think there is convincing. Honestly, I don't think there is convincing.
I was convinced. I don't know. That's just me, but I feel like I was convinced.
To be fair, I feel I was as well. It took a long time for me to get there.
But by someone over and over and over.
No, I see where you're going.
Multiple people.
There is
Well,
It was a
exactly.
lot of people.
Your surroundings. People were pointing out to you obvious things that were happening around you, and then you were convinced by the fact
That's true.
of the things
I
that were
agree.
That
happening.
was another strategy, actually, I wanted to discuss.
There we go.
Have any of you read Terry Pratchett, Discworld series?
Yeah,
No.
yes.
Okay, so if you're familiar with the book, okay, there's a book in the series called Night Watch. I'd recommend anybody read it. It's about Vimes, who's a police officer, and he falls back in time into a period of his life that he remembered as being a living hell. And it was a living hell because the state had failed. It had fallen apart. It was basically farmed the taxes out to the cronies of the government. And in the end, it collapses and falls around a new leader the way that it usually does. But the process of the collapse was very intriguing to me because it was basically, imagine a bunch of red and white dots on a board, and you're trying to convert all the white dots into red dots, and you've got less red than white. So you mix them up in a certain way. You make them mingle with certain people. If a conversation starts going the wrong way, you move one person towards somebody else. And you very slowly paint each of them with the idea. You plant the seed in their head that maybe this one isn't so good. Maybe there's another way. And then somebody comes along and expresses how this could be done a different way that actually works. And you just slowly, it's the Brownian motion of society. You have to make it work with you. So you've got to plant the seeds in the people that you know will spread that idea.
I think Nina's point about the environment, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Like, if you and I and 3 other people all try to convince someone, I mean, essentially we are creating an environment around them that will convince them, right? I think.
Correct.
I think that's good too.
That's how you have to do it.
Unfortunately, there's not quite enough of us yet. There's only maybe 300 of us in the entire world, but I exaggerate.
I think that's a huge underestimation from just personal experience.
That's how many followers he has.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately, there's not quite enough of us yet who are really on ball with it, but it's getting there, and slowly, and I think we're in a transitional period, and we just, that is a consequence of the times that we were born in. We are just in a transitional period right now, and we have to play our part accelerating it as much as possible. That's what we
live in interesting times.
Yes, definitely. Maybe 100 years ago and 100 years from now it'll be totally different, and hopefully the part we played and the bricks we laid will convince people to go the right way, go the good way.
Do they know the way though?
All right,
that's what we have to show them.
No way.
See, and
this is the thing. It's not our way, though. We have to show them that they have to find their own, and that's probably going to be the hardest thing because it's self-responsibility.
I mean, it's
nobody wants it.
Well, right, exactly. That's the real thing. Like, that's one of the reasons I like Jordan Peterson's popularity rise, because his whole thing is personal responsibility.
Yeah, and that is key. And if there was some way I could talk to him, just even for like half an hour and pick that man's brain, that I would be indebted. Honestly,
your brain before psychologist.
He wants to go Caffeine Newman in him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd probably have to go to one of like his lectures or something if he does one in Britain again, which may not happen given the fact that they banned Lawrence Southern.
Yeah. Well, that's why YouTube is good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm trying to start streaming and things like that to see if I can help get the word out. But if he were to see, like, if he were to start thinking how government is a new religion, I think if somebody could plant that little seed in his head, I think that would really sprout some wings. To be quite frank, that would be a tree and a half.
Yeah, but, and to be honest, like, because that's the thing. It has to be a personal journey. It has to be a journey of personal responsibility because basically you have to admit if you're going to become an anarchist, you have to admit that the ideas you were spreading before were wrong. That was one of the hard things for me because I was sort of unduly arrogant before, and I just sort of want to be right without actually having to work for it. So, like, it ends up being a journey of personal discovery and personal change, and the state manufacturing tax cattle like they do basically capitalize on people's ignorance and unwillingness to accept the fact that they might have contributed some wrong to the world that they didn't even consider a wrong at the time. And that's a complex sort of issue because it means that you have to end up telling people not only that they were wrong and that they produced more wrong by being wrong and publicly wrong, but that they have to go back and maybe tell the other people that they told these other things that, hey, I was wrong about these things. Maybe go on a reunion tour with some of the people that they helped really strengthen the statism of, to say, hey, actually I found this fork off from a belief that I had before, and this fork off led me to anarchy, so I was wrong that my way was the only way. And that's what's really hard because nobody wants to take personal responsibility for their stake in the world or their impact on how it formed. So
Well, some of us are just afraid to speak.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean, especially in the current climate, I mean, in the West, it's basically you speak for freedom of speech or anything to do with human rights that are actually there. Instead of the privileges that the state actually gives you. You wind up getting called either a racist, a misogynist, both, and potentially even a terrorist. I had that one once.
Who cares?
That was interesting. Yeah, because I'm an anarchist, I'm a terrorist now.
I know.
Gotta love that logic. Gotta love that logic. Yeah, here I am wanting to rule the world by peacefully leaving you the fuck alone.
Well, I got called a thief once because I don't believe in taxes.
You got called a thief?
You got called a thief
for not believing in taxes.
Yeah, I know. It's a very weird. I didn't know how to retort to that.
That's a weird. That's one of those ones.
Easy.
That's one of those
that's
ones.
Easy. That's called a non sequitur.
You just adjust your collar and you look at them and you go, "You're right," and then you walk away.
He said something along the lines of. Let's see if I can remember it. It was a while ago, but he said something like, "Oh man, I pay my taxes, and you don't want to pay yours. It's not fair. You're stealing from me." And I'm like, "What?
Huh?
Well, I don't want the stuff you're the state's giving me. So why should I pay for it?"
Well, I'm in an unusual boat because I actually am technically an American citizen still. So technically, the IRS would expect me to pay taxes if I earned a certain amount. Now, thankfully, I don't.
I live on a boat, so I
you avoid it by just going off to sea and having them ship their mail in the water.
Works out.
He sends doves.
Homing pigeons.
I shoot the doves as they come close to me. They violated the nap when they crawled into my airspace.
Beautiful, love it. But yeah, because of FACTA, I have to be very careful with my money, and it's a good thing that I'm married. Let's just leave it at that. But and all of my stuff's tied into somebody else's name.
I've said it for a while, and I will continue to say it, that I think that the best way to convince people of at least libertarianism is to be a fucking person and to consider other people and not to fall for the easy ones, not to fall for so you hate poor people. Don't fall for it. Don't bite at it. Don't worry about it. Get the people who are going to believe you. Just get the people who are going to believe you and live your life in a way that convinces everyone else that, of course, you don't hate poor people. You must be thinking about this in a different, more deeper way than people would simply suggest. I think that does a lot. I think if you live the whole of your life in a way that makes sense to other people. Oh, wait, he doesn't like welfare, but this guy doesn't hate poor people. It doesn't work itself. If you just live like a fucking human being, and if you don't want to, I'm not here to tell you to, but don't fucking come crying to me that you can't convince people to join the way.
I self-identify as a helicopter.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, doesn't that put you in the alt-right, though?
I will live my life as a helicopter. You can't make.
So you're like one of those.
You can't make those collectivist judgments. That's another thing you've got to avoid. You've got to stop thinking of people as groups.
Who likes
got to stop thinking them. It's a Pinochet reference.
No, I know. I'm from South America. Believe me.
I know. I thought you would.
Better than the rest of us.
I can't avoid the collectivist references. I mean, I am a political theorist by nature. I see patterns in people, but I understand what you're saying. I don't see them as a monolith. I just know they fall into groups.
Yeah, but this is one of the things that people need to understand is collectivism itself, the idea that the group is more important than the individual, is the core problem.
The group is more important than individual rights. That's really what collectivism is.
Agree.
It's the idea that individual rights are subordinate to that of the group simply because the group exists, and it's totally fallacious.
Yes, it is. And it denies the fact that the group is made up of the individual. And that is the core point. It is an illogical it's a piece of circular reasoning that then expands into this massive mind fuck that is the thought virus of government. And the
thought virus.
It does. Yeah, that is what it is. It basically is a virus. It mutates. It constantly changes its form, its nature, just so that people will accept it.
Well, what it kind of does is when it takes over something like, say, roads. When it takes over roads, everyone just kind of assumes the state is the only thing that can make roads.
Yeah.
Even if you show an example of, there was one I saw, it was like 300 farmers across the state of Idaho or something like that, within like a day built a road across the entire state or something like that. And apparently stuff like that can't happen.
Well, my favorite one, there's one in Britain. There was one in Britain. I mean, Britain, even though it is absolutely crazy on speech at the moment, has some really amazing agorist shit going on. First off, there was the guy who converted his land into a bypass, because there was a detour being built by the government as they were rebuilding the road, and it was fucking everybody's journey up. So he charged them £1 to use his basically pre-made bypass over a piece of land he was going to lay fallow anyway. So they used the bypass, everybody paid, he made a profit on it, and then converted the land back when it wasn't necessary. Temporary road, fully approved by the state as well by the end of it, because he had to get planning permission and everything, but they didn't bat an eye, and he made money off the damn thing. And then there's one other one. What was it? Oh, God damn it. Oh, yeah, that's it. Find My Bobby. There's an app for private police in Britain.
Oh, well, we have Cell 411. I mean, that's similar.
Well, yeah, but but Cell 411 is more to tell you where the police are, so you don't have to deal with them.
No, you're right. That's true.
This is a private police force that is basically got an app that you pay them a service fee of £200 a month, and they will protect you. You can contact them at any point in time, and they will be there. And this private... I'll be quite frank. When I read the report on these guys, I was astonished. They have 100% conviction record. 100%. They are basically the only other group that is even close is another private one. And I think that's the RSPCA, which is basically cruelty to animal prevention. And they're a charity for over here, and maybe RSPCC, which is against children.
Against children.
But against child cruelty, let's put it that way.
Children can be cruel, especially you can't trust them with those.
The roads one is an easy one, man, but I don't think it actually gains that much ground. Honestly, it's an easy one to take down, but I don't know how much ground that gains. I guess.
It kills an avenue.
Just enough, but yeah.
This is the point. You have to destroy each.
It's an easy
you have to destroy each one, and police is easy too, because You've
I don't know
got
about that.
you've got mall cops. You've just got to get people to understand the idea of a market.
Well,
for
here's
the
one of those
shit.
things.
I don't
Here's one of
think
those things where you got to go collective versus individual. There are definitely some people, and they all fall into a very specific category, and we all know what that category is. But one of those categories where it would be very difficult to convince people not of police. I mean, that's a group of people. So I don't know if it's easy for everyone. You know, it's probably a lot easier for liberals, in America at least. Probably a lot easier for them than it is for the conservative side or any other number outside of the binary.
This is where you just have to throw the body of evidence at them, basically. An info bomb,
shut them
effectively.
down, though? I mean, again,
well, that gets them thinking. That's
we are having
the point.
a conversation
you get them
about
thinking.
getting people, convincing people, when really we should be convincing every individual individually. So it's kind of hard to even ask these questions, but
yeah,
you know, I think we both know where we're coming from.
Yeah, exactly. But the key point is you throw all of the evidence in their face and say, the system doesn't work, the system doesn't work, the system doesn't work. Then throw evidence to show our alternative working. Like in the case of the police force, the Find My Bobby group that hires out ex-cops basically to investigate crimes. And they've actually been now authorized to do criminal offenses, like proper felony level offenses. So they can investigate murders now and have been working on some of the child rape issues that have been going on. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. If you can get ex-cops to compete against the state, the sky's the limit. The state will die.
Just for the sake of being the devil's advocate, I want to throw a question at you then.
Go ahead.
Assuming, which I don't think I can think of a specific example, but certainly other people could imagine this to be true. In a situation where the free market or voluntarism, we'll call it voluntarism, in a situation where voluntarism and voluntary contracts and activities do not fulfill a purpose as well as the state, how do you argue our purpose? Right, but this is not, I'm not asking you this. This is somebody who's already convinced themselves of that. So
that's what I'd do. I'd ask them, give me an example. Give me an example of the state doing better than the market, not a company. The market.
Well,
some people would throw military at you.
It depends on what you mean by better.
They use private contractors.
It depends on what you. It depends on what you mean by better, because if
in their mind, it has to be in their mind. That's all that matters.
But that's subjective. That's the point. I'd need to have them define that first.
The individual, right?
Here's the thing.
I get them to define that first.
Guys,
sure.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Here's the thing. If they think it's better, you have to ask them then if they're fine with having the unethical nature of the state on their conscience to get that better. Yes,
that's exactly where I wanted to go with it. If something doesn't fulfill the purpose better, then this is my problem with the pragmatic approach. And it's not really a problem. I understand exactly what you're saying because the free market does solve these problems better. But you are basing that on real demonstrable evidence, which could change. It's
potentially.
Right, potentially. That's it.
But that's the point. It's potentially. Anything could happen. A meteorite could hit the fucking planet tomorrow.
Pragmatic libertarians, or are we making objective libertarians?
Never go pragmatism. That's
my problem. Pragmatic. That's my problem.
Asking to get fucked in the future.
That's my problem. So if you make people believe things based on the actual numbers, those numbers can change. Do you know what I'm saying?
Argument, I get what you're saying, but you're basically saying that's an appeal to fear, though. That's the problem. That's what you have to point out to them. That is fear. That is fear of the unknown.
But what if it becomes known? I mean, there are certainly situations where people, not me, not you, people can make the argument that certain, even minuscule things can be done better. There's a very, very powerful, not in my opinion, but a powerful argument among people who would say this, that firefighters are a great example of how public service is better. I don't agree with it. I can point to evidence that that's not the case. But this is anecdotal evidence at best either way.
That was one of the things that I had to be convinced of, was firefighters, police, all of the functions of governance
But were
have
you
to be taken in consideration.
convinced from that because of the effectiveness, or is the true root of your conviction that it's better
Logic.
because it's private?
It's better because it's logical.
But
That's
what is
why.
logic? Moral? Is it
Okay.
moral or is
No. It has nothing to, it's not necessarily to do with morality. It's the concept of, does it work? Does it function? And does it function optimally?
But
The only way human society can function optimally is under anarchy. That is, unfortunately, the
depends on
paradox of people.
That's
Optimal means the most efficient way for everybody to have the best opportunity.
This is what we just went.
That means optimal to you. Some people might want their group to have the optimal, like the best opportunity, and that might be optimal to them. Optimal is a subjective term.
Optimal, I would disagree.
I gotta keep it.
What?
All right.
Go.
You're kind of sounding utilitarian when you say like that.
I can understand why you think that, because a lot of people do.
You're saying most optimal. What goes into my mind immediately, because, well, is utilitarianism. And the first thing I think of in utilitarianism is a homeless guy's organs could benefit, someone.
It's not your property. Yeah, but it's not your property.
So again, you're basing this in morality.
No, I'm basing it on rights.
But you're not.
And if rights are morality, then we're going to have a very weird issue here, because it's ethics. It's not really morality.
Wait. You were saying something about everything being optimal a second ago, and I'm saying, well,
yes.
Technically, that one.
In order for things to be optimal, there are rules. That is the thing.
Wait, where are we differentiating between morality and ethics? Ethics are a set of moral principles.
Ethics are something that are objectively agreed to by consent. That's the difference. It's all about consent in the end.
But ethics describes morality. I mean,
it describes a shared morality, an objective morality.
Sure, and that's the morality.
It is the closest thing to an objective morality. But the problem is when you talk to people about the word morality, they think of their own morality. They think of either their religion, or they think of something that they hold dear as their moral code, and they'll violate it all the time.
Okay, so you and I are on the same page. We're talking about morality, ethics, in specifically observable natural rights.
Correct.
That's
and,
where
and they are observable. Because
that's the only thing that I call moral. So just you don't know that, obviously. We've never spoken before, but
no, obviously.
For that we're on the same page then. Okay, I understand.
Yes.
Okay.
So everything is built around, I'm working on a very long-winded piece to try and logically prove voluntarism is the most optimal form of governance for society.
And optimal again, how?
Optimal as in everybody has basically full responsibility for themselves.
Okay.
And therefore they have full responsibility for what becomes of themselves.
So to you.
So they can choose however they want to do it.
Right.
But they have to assume the consequences of those choices. That's all I ask of anyone.
Okay. So to you, the most optimal thing is that which gives the most personal consequence to
every individual.
That is optimal to you. Now,
yes,
I'm sure you understand.
That's the thing I said like earlier, though. Like optimal is a subjective term.
Yes,
optimal means like. So I mean, you gotta use concrete terms if you want a concrete.
Well, here's
result.
the thing, Chair. If he describes that term that way, then that's what he means by optimal. So he's just using the word optimal, but he has established his point. I agree. It's an odd word to use, but from that, I understand where you're coming from. You're right.
Right.
In that sense, if
from
you're
a linguistic standpoint, from a linguistic standpoint, but it's the best one I've been able to find. Everybody talks about good or right or true or all of these muddly, murky terms that mean something different to everybody. Optimal is something that is supposed to be for every single person, the best possible outcome is possible. The worst is also possible, but it is less probable. And that is the whole point. We're dealing with a probabilistic system. And that system is society. It's not going to want to work a certain way. It's going to want to work a lot of different ways at once. And
so
that's something we have to accept.
Every individual.
Yes. And that if you do that, the system actually functions the way it's supposed to. Things work in harmony because they have to survive.
Absolutely.
When you have a single objective, it's all about that subjective reality that we all build for ourselves.
Right.
It's everybody will take in different data, so everybody will have a different view on everything. And they'll have a different way of expressing it. They may actually agree on something.
Utilitarian in a way, in a good way.
In a good way, it is.
In a way, I've never considered utilitarianism.
It is basically a functional utilitarianism that doesn't have to deal with the idea that you can take something from somebody else that isn't yours. Because that isn't utility.
I understand. Yep,
well,
absolutely.
that is utility because the utility doesn't change based on the ethics. A razor blade is still a razor blade, even if it's slicing through somebody's throat. Even though it could possibly be used to open a box or cut a wire, it's still a weapon if used like a weapon. Utility doesn't change because ethics do. So utilitarianism doesn't really care about ethics. That's the point.
Yeah, but you are talking. Well,
no, but I'm just saying it's very similar. I'm not
traditionally.
Saying
Traditionally, it is. I'm trying to maybe bring it back to something a bit more sensible. Because I think
you could be doing what Rothbard did with the term libertarian and trying to basically reappropriate it.
A little bit, to be fair. But I think voluntarist just does the job, though, man. I don't need another term. It works. I like the term too.
It works for now.
But you've got to prove logically that it works, and that's what I've been trying to do. And I've spent a good 4 or 5 years trying to find all the evidence that empirically proves it as well.
Right,
just to back up the logic.
So that's like I said before, that's my only issue with it, is that empirical evidence can change, whereas objective truths do not. If you don't believe in objective truths, it doesn't work, obviously, but you have to prove
exactly. And that's why you need the data.
Yeah.
That's why I like Anarchist, because realistically there's a huge fuck ton of things that one can support, and if you're very concrete about just specific things that you're cutting off from your ethical framework, specific things that you don't support, then it can give people a more concrete starting point for understanding where you're coming from. So I just call myself an anarchist. The voluntarist thing comes second.
Every single
I'll be honest, same here, but
term is just a tactic. It's just a tactic in the end.
Anarchist.
Spring, your turn.
Okay, sorry. Anarchist. It's a bit of an edgy word.
Well, I mean, it has an edgy connotation, maybe, but
I
first
use it
off,
for that
I like
reason.
Chaos Emeralds, so I mean, I don't really care about edgy, but
I
beyond that,
I know you don't care because you're Jeremiah and you have a beard and hair and just personality to go with. Fuck it, I know what I am, and I'm proud of it. And that's
and that's what people should do, I think.
But we're not trying.
People should be proud of who they are.
We're not
but
trying
sometimes
to
they
convince
aren't.
people to be anarchists by word. We're trying to convince them of the system that comes with it, and the word that you choose to use is a tactic. If I want to intrigue people at the beginning of a conversation, I will call myself an anarchist. I don't consider myself one. But if you want to bring people in, use the word that works, because the principles are the same.
I think anarchist scares people off because the biggest thing.
Well, again, I'm talking about people I see it would work with.
Well, and it scares the people off that might not be interested in the first place. Nina, you were going to say something though?
No, not really. I was just gonna actually say the word anarchist has such a connotation right now, and then meaning on the dictionaries that is not what we know is. That I don't think it's necessary. The semantics of it doesn't interest me. So I'm just listening to you guys.
There's a misconception with anarchy that always bugs me, and everyone seems to think no rules.
Right.
And that's but it's no rulers. It's not rules.
But that's problem number one.
And I
everybody thinks that.
Like this though, like the word anarchist is it has roots, and it comes from the place of anarchos, opposing archons and archonic structures. Basically, we oppose rulers, and that's what that is. We don't necessarily oppose rules, but we oppose a central power that would force the same rules on everybody, regardless of their property and consent.
See, and Jeremiah just did it. He just intrigued people into hearing what he actually means. That's it.
I mean, we already know the term what anarchist means, so
no,
True,
but they don't.
But that is kind of and that is a good point. But
Bird, you want people to be intrigued by something that you are not?
No, that's not because a word is nothing. The beliefs behind it are what matters. All I want to do is use a word to get them to go, hmm. So if I'm talking to somebody from Antifa, I'm gonna call myself an anarchist, but I'm gonna say the exact same things that I believe. I'm not lying to anyone. It's a word. I want to bring people in, and that's what I want to refine my point to that. I don't care if the word anarchist has a certain connotation. I won't use it around people who follow that connotation. I'm only going to use it where
I'll use it around them.
Yeah, I know, Jared, but you're
I just think it's some type of a scandalization around the word. You are trying to scandalize the word. I'm sorry, Frank.
I personally think if there's any term that I am going to try and reclaim for what it rightfully was, it would be anarchist, because it needs to come back to what it actually means. It's not fucking communist.
Well, it can be. I mean, communism, if it's like a certain variety of it, does not need, well, actually multiple varieties, but does not need a state. It's state communism we should oppose in the same way that we oppose state capitalism. I don't hear you making the distinction with capitalists.
We'll need to get an ANCOM on here at some point just to actually work out what the hell it means, because to be quite frank, I don't understand how.
I've read several.
I don't understand it.
Books, I'm still not convinced that I know what it means.
I still don't see how it isn't a logical contradiction, because in order to enforce the group and what the group needs, you need to have a state. There's no other way to do it.
Well, they would say the same thing about private police and McNukes. They make that point all the time, arguing with anarchy.
They do. They make it all the time.
But it's a false. It's non sequitur.
They say that it's indistinguishable.
I think an ANCOM is basically someone with no principles who just wants to go out and break stuff.
I mean, that's not what anti means, though. So
that's what Antifa, but I think it's just Antifa.
Realistically speaking, an anarcho-communist would not go out and break other people's property. Realistically, anarcho-communists would not be an archon in and of themselves.
I think, but the problem is that anarcho-communism basically rejects hierarchy at its core.
Some of it does. Some of it.
I've yet to seen. I don't know all the flavors. There's so many. They come up with a new one every day.
Well, right. That's the thing. I've been looking into this for like the better part of a decade, and I know this stuff fairly thoroughly, and I know for a fact that there are certain anarchic systems that are compatible with communism. And I will go into those at some point, but I prefer capitalism. I like wealth accruing. I like the idea of being able to raise one's stature by merit, but I don't think
I agree with you, Jeremy. Honestly, but the problem is that I don't understand how. I just don't get it. There's no logic to it.
Well, that's the problem
for me. It doesn't matter as long as it's voluntary.
If it's voluntary, fine. I just don't know how it could be.
Right,
but if that's how they want to do it, that's how they want to do it. It's not for us to figure out. It's for them to figure out.
Right, exactly.
If they want to do it that way.
I wanted. You said something in particular, and I want to dissect it a little bit because I feel like I have an argument that we could go
and who's you
forward with. Means.
Hi.
You said scandalizing the word.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, okay, maybe the in Portuguese might mean something else. So you want to intrigue people. You want to spark an interest when you say that word. You are not an anarchist. You yourself are a minarchist.
No, I'm a voluntarist.
Okay. And then you want to use that word. Meanwhile, you are saying that it doesn't really mean anything. However, you want to use it as because of its super meaning.
So, Nina, let me ask you a question. If I was talking to a conservative and I wanted to convince them of a voluntarist system, what would be the easiest way for me to not get shut down? Would I call myself an anarchist? Would I call myself a libertarian? What would I call myself? If I wanted to specifically intrigue this person into actually having a conversation with me, not
Who's
pull
this
some
person
sort of
again?
With a conservative,
soapbox.
if you wanna to spark their interest, tell them that you are an incom. Then they will be in shock and they will talk to you.
Yeah.
If you're going for shock tactics, that would
The
work.
problem
Yeah,
is
that's
when
what I'm
you-
trying to say. Is that
no,
putting shock in
Nina.
that word.
The problem with what you just did is an is fine, com is not. Com is a specific set of principles that they would not agree with. An is fine. An is a
Then
very
say that you're a
general-
communist alone.
But I'm
then.
not a communist. Communist is a very
And you're
specific
not an
thing.
anarchist.
Right, but I'm a libertarian, but I'm a voluntarist, and people would say that libertarian, voluntarist, anarchist are the same things. There are different types of anarchy, are there not?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to
then
say is
why-
that the word itself, whenever we try to use it to scandalize, that's what people will feel at it. We need to make them feel at ease. Don't use that word as some type of like shock value. It's not.
well,
It's not. It isn't.
so-
Anarchy
okay,
is not
so
It
then-
shouldn't be.
shocking.
It shouldn't be shocking. It should be.
but it is.
It should be the obvious conclusion. The only reason
is
it isn't.
Well, it's not shocking
Why?
to everyone. No, it's
Okay,
not,
maybe
you're right.
maybe
It's not
Bird.
shocking.
Maybe to be fair, by shocking, what I'm saying is edgy. You know, like that
But
teenager that
people
make
are
them all
attracted to edgy.
Yeah.
There are some people are attracted to edgy. If we're talking to those people, why would we not speak their language but not change our principles? You're getting stuck on a word. I'm
Yeah, I
saying
am.
that the-
Exactly.
but-
That's why I don't like. That's why I said the semantics don't interest me.
but we're not trying to interest you.
Charming.
You're already here.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
Already part
What
of the
I'm saying is
discussion.
that it doesn't the semantics for me to fight about that. That's why I was quiet all the time. You poked me, and I'm giving you what I think.
That's good.
There is
But
to it.
I'm
So keep using the word as you want. It's just if it
But I want you to
shock your
understand.
conservative dudes, do it.
No, I wouldn't. That's the point. I don't want to shock the conservatives. If I was trying to convince a conservative, I would call myself a libertarian.
Okay.
Tactics. It's tactical. It's all
It's
about.
tactics.
Well,
But
It's
you
all about
understand
learning.
why.
That's the other
Sure.
part of it. Like, I'm willing to, like, that's the other part of it. I'm willing to use the word anarchist because it's true. And then, like, the secondary thing is people's reaction to the truth. I
But
will
Jeremiah,
say,
your principles are what matter, right?
well, partially.
Not the
outcome
word.
is also what partial.
If
It
people
is
call-
also.
Well, here's the thing, Jeremiah. Let me explain to you what I mean. If somebody called themselves an anarchist but believed in a military, you would go, they're using that word, but the word doesn't match the
What?
principle.
Is it a private military? Is it a military?
No, you know exactly what I'm
form of
saying. It's a
militia?
public military. It's a public military. This person is calling themselves an anarchist because they like the word but not the principles.
Well,
right?
right. Okay, sure.
You know
But
what
at
I'm
the
saying?
same time, if you are an anarchist, and I do get what you're saying, but if you are an anarchist, then you could say that as your primary truth and then explain what you mean. That's that's the way I've gotten a ton of
Right,
people
but
on
we're
board.
talking about an icebreaker here.
Yeah,
not-
and in terms of an icebreaker, this shatters a lot of people's ice.
Absolutely,
in my
absolutely.
experience.
It's
Absolutely.
just the old
It
line
works
of
for some
as an
people.
anarchist.
Oh man, this sounds like a
Right.
great pickup line from Bird. I see him over at the bar. He sees a nice, pretty lady. He goes up to her. Hey, girl, you want to abolish the state?
Hey, it works. It works.
Catching.
This is the only reason why I say this is not because I want to convince you to use semantics, but for you to understand why it can work.
I
Because
know,
if you're
I'm
using a word,
Why
the
not
word
just
doesn't mean
Bird,
anything unless
I'm
you put
not
meaning
saying
behind
Bird.
it.
Okay, maybe it's lost in translation there. I'm not saying that you're trying to convince me. I am saying that you're using a word that you're not to cause shock. I don't understand that. What's that for? If the
To
word
intrigue
has
people
no
into listening to it.
value, but at the same, okay, then fine. Then you're tricking people. You're already starting poorly.
why
Sorry.
don't you just consistently call yourself a libertarian?
Yeah,
But
that would
because
be
some
true.
people don't respect libertarians.
People
Well,
don't
piss on
respect
that.
anarchists.
Honestly, most people don't
But you're
respect
not
anarchists
understanding.
either.
Sprint, but you're not understanding my point. The point is not
No,
to use
clearly
the same
not.
word for everyone. It's to tailor the word you use to the person who will most listen to it.
I get the tactic. I also don't really fully agree with it because it's not.
Why
It makes
not?
you inconsistent. It makes you inconsistent.
It doesn't.
And
wait,
that's the
word
worst
makes
thing
you
we can do.
inconsistent? The word
That is
makes you
absolutely
inconsistent.
no, not the word. It's the usage of different terms to describe yourself.
It is a lie.
That is kind of yeah. I mean, Nina's right.
Are
It is
lies.
basically trying to manipulate people, and that's not going to work. It can. I'm
It's
not saying it
manipulating
won't.
people. It's
Well,
using a word.
dude.
No. Because my
Really,
principles haven't changed the entire time.
I know,
no,
Bert, but you
I'm
did
not
say the word
saying you.
trick.
Well, your principles
It's not. You're kind of committing fraud.
No, if you were no, let's look specifically at what fraud is. If you look into a contract, the words in the contract are what determine whether or not something is fraud, not the title of the contract.
Do you consider yourself an anarchist, mate?
I consider myself a voluntarist.
That's not. Then call yourself a voluntarist. Just call yourself a voluntarist. There's
Yeah,
no
that
point
word
in
alone
calling
is
yourself an
gonna
anarchist.
start to
That word
a
alone
lot of
is going to
people
crack
don't
it.
know what it is. They will be
Nobody
like, oh,
fucking knows.
Are we interested in bringing in people who would believe our principles but would respond more to one word than others?
Yes.
So then why wouldn't you?
Because if you're going to use the word anarchist and you're not actually an anarchist and you say you are, when it comes around to you saying, oh, I'm not an anarchist later on after you've gotten to know them, that will damage the model that you're trying to help them construct because they won't trust you anymore properly. You misrepresented yourself to them. And that will cause them to...
At most, you've misrepresented a single word.
No, you've misrepresented who you are in that word. That's the point. You have to use the right word to describe what you're trying to do. And voluntarist is perfect.
I love that word, and most of the time I will use that.
I'd just say don't do most of the time. Do it all the time, mate.
I don't know. I'm not making the connection as to why that's not a valid tactic. I mean, you're basing it on the idea that someone will go, oh, you lied to me about the term, but all your principles are the same? I can't believe that. I mean, it's not...
being hyperbolic right now. You know what we're talking about.
I don't. Nina, I don't, and you can't assume that I do because the point hasn't been made to me.
God.
I kind of get what you're coming from. You're kind of basically saying it's not important. That's your subjective opinion.
Yes.
Somebody else.
About it for 20 minutes.
Sorry?
It's not important. That's why we talked about it for 20 minutes.
More than 20 minutes.
More than 20 minutes.
But
seriously.
Are you not collectivizing yourself by calling yourself an anarchist and sticking to that? This is not an accusation at all. I am curious.
It's a group.
Myself, I'm saying I oppose a certain type of person and a certain position and a certain societal framework. If I'm saying I'm an anarchist, somebody else might consider me a part of a collective. I know I've been called an ANCOM because I call myself an anarchist, but that's not what I am doing.
Yeah, but this is the point. You can be a part of a collective and not be a collectivist.
So then let me ask you a further
independent.
Question. Let me ask you a further question then.
Okay.
We take libertarian, right? We'll take the term libertarian. That's a nice clean one.
Yeah.
Within libertarianism, does anarchy exist?
Yes.
Yes.
Within libertarianism, does voluntarism exist?
Yes.
Well, I consider them the same, but yes.
You consider them the same. So how are we using different words?
Well, because libertarianism also contains minarchism, the Libertarian Party,
correct,
and a number of other groups that can be confusing.
Does anarchy include voluntarism?
Anarchy includes voluntarism, communism, mutualism, syndicalism. Sure. There are hundreds of different terms.
If I'm talking to a conservative, and I know they will respond positively to libertarianism, I am a libertarian.
Then you can use it.
Well, libertarian's kind of a larger word to describe
this, but Spren, is it inaccurate?
Well, that wouldn't be inaccurate. Calling yourself an anarchist when you're not is definitely inaccurate.
Are anarchy and voluntarism inseparable?
What do you mean? Like,
no.
You can be an anarchist and be an anarcho-communist. That doesn't make any sense, but that's...
But I didn't say anarcho-communist. This is the thing. This is the relationship between libertarian and anarchy. One is in the other.
speaking, but voluntarism does not require anarchy. I consider them basically mutually the same. But if you have everybody in a region who unanimously agree to be ruled by a certain person for whatever reason,
yeah, like those cults.
then that is voluntary. You can't say that's wrong.
Right, but isn't a state involuntary? Isn't that what a state is?
Well,
and this is coming from somebody who considers themselves a voluntarist in the Nizikian fashion. Even he describes state.
Go on.
No, even he describes what could arise as a state as voluntary. That's not the point. If all these words fill into one another, why is it a lie to use libertarian? It's not, of course.
No, that's not. Right, that's absolutely fine to use.
Here we go. So I'm talking to a conservative, and they would laugh at me if I called myself a voluntarist, right? But I'll call myself a libertarian.
They probably wouldn't know what that is. That's the point. What the hell is a voluntarist?
All right, but you're on one subject when I'm asking a very specific question.
Okay, sorry.
So the very specific question is, if somebody will respond positively to libertarian, and I am a voluntarist, and we've agreed that voluntarism is within libertarianism, so is it okay to use the term libertarian?
Of course, because you are.
You recognize it as a tactic, but it's also truthful.
Yes, that's the point.
That's fine.
You can be a libertarian and a voluntarist.
Okay, the only dissent that I guess we're having is that I don't really distinguish anarchy from voluntarism.
Fair enough. I personally don't either, but that's because I am one.
So then but here's the thing. You can't say that I'm being dishonest if you describe the two of those things as the same.
Do you consider yourself an anarchist?
I do not. I consider myself a voluntarist.
Then you consider there is a distinction between the two.
Ah, my head hurts.
Sorry, Sprin.
I know, this is so inside baseball. I apologize to everyone who's listening. But it's such an important conversation to have when you're convincing people, right?
I'm gonna put this down as quick as I can with my brain.
Okay.
All right. All voluntarists are libertarian, but not all libertarians are voluntarists. If you consider yourself a minarchist, you are not voluntarist, but you are still minarchist.
No, I disagree.
And I disagree too, Sprin, because you can have a miniature government in a very small region that is 100% voluntary. The minute it isn't, it becomes a state.
What, like a homeowner?
How can it go?
Yes, exactly. A homeowners association. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about.
That's not a government, though. A homeowners association.
Well, here's the thing.
Basically, like a rental contract.
No,
but it's a government under contract. That's what it is.
Have you ever read Anarchy State in Utopia? Have you ever read Anarchy State in Utopia?
I have not.
No.
Within Anarchy State and Utopia, Robert Nozick describes the ultra-minimalist state. He defines state in a way that would make sense to you, I guarantee it, but also in a way that would make you go, that could be a state. He has made this distinguishable. This is the only reason why I use this, and I don't want to go into it now because that's not the point of the conversation. Second part is, Nina, I agree with you at this point. You're absolutely right. I will change that. That is not something that I should do. I agree with you.
40 minutes.
I concede to you. Even though I find anarchy and voluntarism to be, I'm not going to say inseparable, they are nearly inseparable. It is true that I can't rely on everyone having the same opinion on it as me. So within this live stream, you have that revelation for me that I understand where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. That's a good point. Now, we could spar back and forth about what the differences between the two of them are, and maybe I could convince you.
We always do that.
And overall, I was right in the end, but that's not the point. I agree with you.
I never do that, Bird.
No, I know. I agree with you for many reasons, and one of them is because at this point right now, I cannot guarantee other people will understand the distinction. So, Anarchist
that is why I like Anarchist, because I oppose Archons. That's all I need to tell them.
that's fair enough.
Anarchist goes out, voluntarist goes in, minarchist goes in, libertarian goes in, and hey, all those are much easier to convince people of anyway, guys. So
hey, I hope you get to be an anarchist at some point soon.
But do you care? I'm a voluntarist.
Yes, I do care because I think everybody should oppose Archons.
Stop.
So do I.
We're not going down this road.
That's true. That's true. Jared, come on the podcast. We'll spar about that another time.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. When do you record again?
Mondays.
What time?
I'll DM you about it, but we have other things to convince people of, right?
Yeah.
Well, so there's my revelation. I concede my point, Nina. You're absolutely correct. I will send a cake down to Brazil at some point.
What in the world? Well, send me one for the conspiracy theory too, because I was right. Okay. Justin Trudeau is Castro's son.
No. Come on, conspiracy court, and try and convince me of that nonsense.
That one is totally true, and I don't usually.
You get one, Nina. You get one cake, and it's because you were right. Because I can't say you're wrong. Done.
Thank you.
Oh, and also, by the way, I'm making an anti-Trudeau shirt shortly, so
Good.
I'll be able to post that shortly.
Did you know he's Castro's son?
I've heard that, but it's not true.
Dude,
it's not true.
Totally...
It's not true. It's not true.
It's gonna be another hour.
If you want to believe.
It's gonna be another hour. So cut.
It's totally true.
But yeah, basically you have to reach people.
That one's definitely true.
Basically, you have to reach people where they are, and I always say this. It's like, you have to reach them. You have to reach out to them and find a way to pull them back in, maybe a different way than the area you reached. You have to find where they're strong and pull them back that way, because otherwise they're going to lose their footing really, really quickly. And we're on shaky fucking ground here, especially since the state has suppressed any attempted anarchy in the past, and we have almost no historical examples to go off of, but there are countless examples of the state.
Yeah.
What about the Republic of Caspia? That was something I heard about one time in a Twitter conversation.
To be honest, I have no fucking clue. Like the closest thing I get to that is the clans, the cladistic systems of Ireland, but that's still not anarchy. Not really.
Well, you've got Brehon law, which is voluntarism, and then you've got Zomia.
40 times this week. Everyone, it seems like lately people have gotten into that. Like, have you heard of Brehon law? It's like I've never heard that a year ago, and this week, for some reason, the earworm is. Have you heard of Brehon law? It's
that is a good ear law. It is a good earworm because it is an amazing.
It is.
System.
Now I just need to know what it is.
And I've been looking into that for like years. Like I did that before it was cool. So I mean,
you did.
Okay.
You taught me, I think. You taught me. You and Brian did about that one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you have. All right. So he actually has an alibi on this. All right.
Yeah, he does. He taught me about that one, and they also taught me about Zomia. And the art of not being governed. Those three are critical to the movement. They have made everything. They really did open my eyes, because once that whole concept of you can repel another government without needing a state, and Zomia is the proof of that. Once that kind of got grained into me, the only thing I needed solving was how do you police the system?
Vipers.
There has to be some and
Vipers.
This is an amazing
but that's
idea.
The point.
No way this could possibly fail.
Viper pits. Viper pits and Komodo dragons.
Vipers threat management. It's in Detroit.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's
not nearly as fun as actual snakes.
I think it's pretty fun. You get body armor and guns and big ass trucks. That's pretty cool.
I'd rather literally have a basket of snakes.
Yeah, but then Harrison Ford would never show up.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you could just throw the snakes at anybody that comes near you.
Is it an act of aggression to throw an angry snake at someone, or is it the snake's problem?
It's what? No, it's not an act of aggression. That's like asking if it's an act of aggression to stomp somebody with your horse. What?
Officer, I swear I didn't hit him with. I swear I didn't hit him. It was my car.
What if we could have like an NAP thought experiment day where we go through like individual cases of, well, what happens if you drop your basket of snakes on someone by accident? But they're yours.
Match them.
If it's by accident, that wouldn't get you like a death penalty. That would get you like.
Yeah, but tell that to the person who's bitten by snakes.
If that happens, you're just gonna have to lose a couple of your child slaves. I think.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's very fair. God.
You gotta give them as a.
I don't. That is one mimetic thing that I have never understood is the child slaves of ANCAPdom.
Yeah,
I've never understood that.
I think it's because Rothbard wrote about how
Rothbard,
they and then everybody thinks a lot of like anarchists are pedophiles because children can consent and whatnot, and there was a lot of debate about that and if parents own their children or not. So that's where
this is. I mean, that whole conversation is a barrel full of worms.
I was going to say a basket of snakes, but that works too.
Yeah, it is a basket of snakes. Very, very angry snakes that are coming out to bite you.
I was going to say that this isn't related, but technically, if you really do want to convince people of let's say, libertarianism for the sake of it, then you need to answer all these questions because they will hold you to Rothbard, even though you don't hold yourself nearly as much to him.
Right. I've had to actively disassociate myself from him. To be quite
I never
frank.
liked him. I never liked Rothbard.
I never really read.
I like a lot of what Rothbard has to say, but that's one of the reasons I say I collect Chaos Emeralds because it's a better starting point.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that's
for
why
me,
calling yourself a Rothbardian is sometimes you're really tying yourself to a problem.
Yeah, that's why I never. That's why I never do. I stick to the fact that I've come to these realizations and the understanding of it on my own, not having read most of these people. I've had to logically debate it through.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
Even though Bastia is not an anarchist, I do identify with him.
It doesn't matter.
So do I.
Bastia was anarchist. Even if he didn't say he was,
he was a beast.
If you read the law, he was fucking anarchist, yo.
Oh yeah, he was 100%. There's no denying that man was an anarchist, even if he didn't want to admit it.
I mean, I
guess.
Oh
my God!
Say that.
Wow.
What? What happened?
I've heard that before. I've heard that before.
Is Bird Bastiat reborn? Bird Bastiat. I like it. I like it.
I'm gonna have to
get a picture of Bastiat and add some wings now.
No, he's not a Bastiat. In Ancapistan, you can sign up. You can subscribe to a family, and I will subscribe to the Bastiat family name. You're not gonna be in it, Bird. I will put a petition. They will not.
I'll just shoot you.
It will be in the blockchain. You can't erase
the blockchain. That's good. Like that. I know. I do like Rothbard for one reason, and it's because he called Adam Smith a socialist, which I think is amazing. But yeah, I'd rather call myself a Nazikian because it is more accurate. I really do. I follow a lot of what Robert Nozick says. Not everything, but it is more accurate, and it's probably true for a lot of ways.
Don't call yourself an EN. That's cringy.
I don't even know what that is. I'm not gonna lie.
Be yourself. That's what anarchy should be.
I'm not an anarchist.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. He's still tying himself to a collective.
I don't think there's anything wrong with collectivism, dude. I know you do, but
it's a fucking parasite, man. Honestly, it's horrible.
It
has caused more pain and suffering throughout the generations of eons of society. Think about it.
Collectives.
No, all. Not collectives.
Making an egoistic argument here, and I don't think you're an egoist. So I don't know why you'd need to make that argument.
I'm not even certain. I'm not really making an egoistic argument. I'm making a historical one.
Well, I don't think you are. We could find collectives that have caused no harm at all to anyone. I don't.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing as collectivism.
Collectives and collectivism are not mutually inclusive concepts, yo.
No, they aren't, and that's my point. People say, but okay, every form of collectivism says a group can be in charge of the individual. Okay, so every single state,
if that's your definition, I disagree.
Well, that is the definition. It is about the rights of groups to supersede the individual. If the rights of groups supersede the individual has no rights.
So there can be, this is not a challenge, this is just a question. there can be no collective there can be no collectivism where the determinant factor is that the individual should rule themselves.
Correct. There is no way for you to have a collectivism of individualists.
Well, no, there are other forms of things like that. So describing myself as a Nozickian, Robert Nozick, totally voluntary in all of his writing, that is not collectivist.
That's an individualist statement. You just decided that no matter what anybody says, you support the work of Nozick.
I do support the work of Nozick.
Yes,
so therefore
and all
you're
people.
Yeah, there you go.
And therefore, you are part of the Nozickian collective. But that doesn't mean you're a collectivist.
Collectivist. Oh, because the reason why we're on this conversation is because you said, oh, you got to step out of those collectivist... That's what you said.
Concepts, yeah. Well, I said you're still holding on to your collectives. That's what I said.
But didn't we just say collectives and collectivists are different?
Yes, we did. I was making a joke, and you've overanalyzed it a wee bit.
Oh, okay. It's hard to.
But it's a fair
to tell
point.
With your brilliant accent.
Just assume everything in my coming out of me is a little bit tongue in cheek.
This is why the Count Dankula is in jail. It's really hard to tell. They're telling a joke.
Well, it was not hard to tell he was telling a joke.
Yeah, I'm not.
I didn't train a pug to do a salute.
According to the court, he is a anti-Semite legally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand how.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's very easy to understand how they want to crack down on this sort of speech at this level so that nobody goes beyond it, so that people stop towing the line. It's making an example out of him. It's taking him out into the public square, whipping him repeatedly, and then everybody's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that now."
Right.
It's an absolute pain in my side as well, because it means that I've really had to restrict myself on what I was planning to do. Right?
No,
it's very close to home.
They can't jail everybody. Fuck
literally and figuratively, right?
Well, this is the thing. You've got to when you're living in that environment, you've got to make considerations.
Go fast.
So you've got to be very careful. There's
you know what? I'm going to start saying that
there's
chaos
a guy I know.
Are collectivists. I'm just The hedgehogs were a collectivist movement.
You can if you want, but you're ignoring the fact that it's an individual journey from zone to zone.
That's clever on multiple levels. Okay.
Right.
Oh, bloody hell. But yeah,
I still think Robotnik is just a capitalist like all of us, but anyway.
Oh, he's a feminist. That's lore.
No.
I'm not.
Yeah, he is. He is actually very.
He's not a corporate goon.
He is a corporate goon.
He's a corporate goon.
Oh, so he's a corporatist. He's not a.
Yeah.
Everybody who thinks capitalism is out to get something for anybody but yourself, basically. Anything. Sorry, it's very late here, and I am probably going to log off soon. But the capitalism, the main problem people have with it is they see capitalism as corporations and loads of poor people everywhere, and it's the 20% getting 80%, and
that's the
everybody
reason
else getting
make
nothing.
The same distinction communists have to make with capitalism. You've got to say you're an anarcho-capitalist and an anarcho-communist rather than a state capitalist or a state communist.
Yes, absolutely.
Very true. And then you have to guide them into that. But the problem is that I'm also trying to bring back capitalism as a term.
So say you're
trying to get people to
tell people how to be a capitalist at the same time.
Happen.
Yeah. And this is the thing. People who think capitalism is what it is today they don't understand what the economic term it was supposed to mean.
Yeah.
Even
they don't have any nuance, and they're not interested in it.
Can I say, in Brazil, a lot of people think that capitalism means imperialism, American imperialism. This is the view that we have like in South America. The Yankees
Coke for that.
We have a lot to answer for that.
Coca-Cola
for that.
We have made a whole
and Coca-Cola and McDonald's. That's what
this is the opposite
group, yo.
This is the opposite issue of what I guess I was having before is the word now means in the negative, and the word is doing way more damage than the ideas
to most people.
Most people.
Obviously,
and that's the point. We have to try and stem
by
that
proving
tide.
it can be something else.
Absolutely. Again, the principles.
So call yourself an anarchist, and then call yourself other stuff, or call yourself a minarchist, and then call yourself other stuff.
Absolutely.
My view is this: it's all about subjective interpretations of reality. People in America think that a $2 wage in China is horrible. They think that's a travesty. They can't have that kind of slave labor.
They also
the problem is that
goods are in China.
Yeah, they don't know how much the goods are in China. They don't know how much money that is worth to, say, somebody quite young. And
they don't know why it works. They just take the savior mentality, just assume that it doesn't.
And the worst one is think of the children. That is the one that pisses me off the most, because they think these children shouldn't be working. They should be enjoying their education. They should be living their lives. These people are trying to make a life. They're trying to make a living, and the kids are getting involved because they can, and because they can earn money for the families, just like they did in Victorian times, just like they did in America back in the 18 and the 1700s. Everybody chipped in to make their lives better for the whole family.
Yeah, but who came up with that thing first? The Frankfurt School, Fabian socialism. That's they learned that shit in school.
But here's the real thing that you can bring up to those people. Here's the real, like, down-to-earth brass tacks thing you can say. Why don't you think of the children and stop engineering and assisting in the engineering of societies that indebt them and enslave them before they're even born, you fucking dick fuck? Why don't you think of the children?
Wow.
Oh, I know it's projecting from them. That's the thing. They're saying you don't care because you aren't thinking about these people. We are.
No, we just don't want them to be sapped like you do, you fucking collector.
This is what I was trying to say before. Live your life so that people know you do care.
Yeah. And that's what I try to do. I mean, I try to give I can't right now because I'm in strapped means, but whenever I was working, I'd always basically give to people on the street.
Oh, Loop, I don't
if I had the cash. And that's the thing. It's the little things you do. Because the people who make all of these claims that we need to be stolen from to pay for everybody else's mistakes, these sorts of things are they are false charity.
Yeah.
And they drive me crazy because they're basically saying, oh, look how good I am. Look at my virtue. And you have none.
From the comfort of your sofa, from your not ever evolving, from your sitting down, clicking buttons and claiming you did work, when really all you did is paid somebody else to do accounting for a charity organization that gives barely anything to the people it claims to help, you fucking hypocrite.
Exactly. And that is the point. If you give directly to a group you know will help, then that makes change possible. But you can't do that if you're giving all of your money to the state.
Teach men to fish and let them work on your property. Give them jobs. That empowers them.
But you can't do that because of minimum wage.
Right. I don't even mean that you have to, though you should. I truly believe you should. I don't even mean that you have to, that's the primary way that you're going to convince people that you, donating, giving money away. Unless you're super famous, people won't really know that you donate, so they won't believe you when you say you do. I think you already know what I'm saying.
They won't do it anyway. But that's the point. They won't have done it anyway. And even if you challenge it, if they say you're a liar, you can then throw their projection back in their face.
Absolutely.
Because when you get them on the offensive and they attack you personally, they have to prove you wrong. And that's the point. Once they call you a liar, they've done an ad hominem and you've won. And you can just lay into them and describe it. And
here's the problem: is some people will just believe the ad hominem and not move forward. All I'm saying is that I feel like
you don't want to. Half the time, you're convincing the crowd.
Absolutely, but this is the point: the crowd has to look at your public image too. Like beyond the argument that you're currently having, you should live your life in a way that people know that you. Of course, I support these kids. Of course, I support the impoverished. Of course, I do. So why do you think my beliefs would say otherwise? Oh, it must be deeper than that. You need to, you know what I'm saying?
I get it. I've been having that argument with somebody who just basically strawmanned the point I made around gun control. And basically he was saying you don't care about those 11,000 people who die. You only care about the guns. I'm like, I don't really care about the guns. I actually don't really like guns that much. I'm much more a blade man myself. Oh yeah, I've shot quite a few. I don't deny they have an attraction, but I find them.
They just have utility.
I don't like the sound.
There is that too. They are very loud.
I look at them like screwdrivers. I will use the tool if they need to be used.
Yeah. I get that. I just like. I don't know. I'm very traditionalist in weaponry, and I like swords.
Oh, so that is
my
flintlocks.
That is like my favorite weapon on earth is the sword.
Right.
And
what about the cannon?
What about rocks?
Rocks have their utility.
Bow and arrow. That's even more traditionalist.
Exactly. I mean, I've done a little bit of archery in my time, but for me it was always swordplay. It always intrigued me, the finesse, the whole lot of it, and I've always found it fascinating, particularly this Japanese samurai. Their whole tradition.
I like Kali. That's what I practice. Have you ever heard of Kali?
Kali? No, I've not heard of that one.
Knives, sticks, and open hand. Basically, it's different ranges. It's like boxing with weapons. It's very, very good.
Interesting. I always preferred Aikido because they did give you swords and bows to work with as well.
Yeah, Aikido's decent. It's more fancy than I like.
What about Hema? Is that what it's called? Hema?
Kali.
Hema.
What am I thinking of?
A Screama?
Historical.
Does it scream?
Yeah, Screama is.
You just wait. Hema is just historical European martial arts.
Oh yeah, that stuff's kick-ass.
You're all talking about fighting, so like I know one. What's it called again?
Yeah, Hema is actually quite a kick-ass one. It is a fighting style.
Oh, I thought it was just multiple. Like I thought it was just a practice. Oh, okay, cool.
No, it's now a proper style. There are there have been companies at least that train people on how Europeans fought in the Middle Ages, because it was like, nearly a lost art.
I always thought it was like MMA, where like there's different things you do in MMA. Like I don't know, jiu-jitsu is part of MMA. You know what I mean? But it's not. It's actually just its own thing.
Well, it's its own thing. Knights had their own train.
Is a fusion of multiples. That means that it is part of it if you decide to do it. But a lot of people would go more with like a Krav Maga or like just normal boxing.
So
like,
Hema is the libertarian, and then Hema is the voluntarist, and then sword fighting is the libertarian.
No, I think it's the other way around. Because
that might work.
There you go.
I don't know. Hema could use Mason.
Lupin, this is how we convince the sword fighters to join us.
Hema would be libertarian.
Most of them probably are.
And sword fighting. If you like your libertarian at heart, you just don't know it yet.
Let's see. We have covered quite a few different subjects now.
Ultimately, live your life in a way that everyone knows that you care about things.
Now,
and then
I got a great subject. Who is best girl?
No.
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 No, you're not gonna fall. Dang it.
It's Nurse Joy. And beyond that, no more.
Yeah, well, okay. You can have your cardboard if you want.
That was rude.
Okay.
Well, I'm never rude. You know, fuck you. I'm never rude.
Just insane.
What?
There you go. That was it. I mean, convince people by being truthful.
It's a good start, but there's a lot of shit that needs real good sussing out that I think will be very valuable to go into on on either a later date, or just, you know, even in this same conversation, if I can get some people in. But basically, like, the idea should be starting from a good place. And I think stating clearly your terms is a good place to start. Like, if you want liberty, then you're a libertarian. If you understand what liberty means, that is. And if you don't want rulers, you're an anarchist. You know, if you know what anarchist means, you know. So if I say to people that I'm an anarchist and you say to people that you're a libertarian, both of those are true, and both of those have the potential to bring people over. But starting from that point, I believe, is what's necessary. You've got to really clearly state what you are so that nobody feels deceived. Because I have deceived people before in their own mind, because essentially I said, you know, I'm a libertarian and I believe this, and this. And then they're like, wait, you're a libertarian, so you voted for Gary Johnson, right? And I'm like, no, and also Psy, and also fuck Aleppo Man. So, I mean, realistically, you need to start from a very good point that you understand effectively enough to explain. It's sort of like, you know, when I bring up conspiracies, I like to start with the Fed scam because it's a really easy one to explain that I've done countless times, and I'm very firm in my foundation of being able to explain Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking scams. And when you can start from a place that you understand thoroughly, that's a way to get people on board that can make them think that they're not just stepping into a cargo cult or a cult of personality or some other cult, where they're thinking they're actually stepping into a reasonable philosophy that they could sink their teeth into.
Boom. There it is.
Hear, hear, mate. Hear, hear.
In conclusion,
I will say this one thing before you do. I'm definitely up for another conversation on strategies and whatnot to try and resolve this. Well, next time, I think we should probably tackle one major subject.
Yes.
Well, yes. and that's what I'm gonna do. Like, this was sort of a testing of the waters stream. But what this is gonna be in the future is we're going to have like a central subject that will be different each week, but with the same sort of general idea of how do we solve this with the least amount of aggression possible. And that's where I come in. Like the whole, like, you know, optimal thing. I think that that's a good term for some people, but for me, I just prefer saying I oppose archons, I oppose aggression, because both of those are things that I can explain in real good, solid, concrete terms, and both of those things sound evil. I mean, you don't hear the word archon and think of a friendly guy sitting with a bow tie. You think of like, you know, some dude running, like, you know, the villains on Command and Conquer, for instance.
Yeah.
You think of that. And
really,
you don't
really poor frames per second.
Oh yeah, well, either way,
I'm working on the computer guys.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Doom villains.
But either way, you like aggression, archons. You think evil. You think the fundamental bad guy, and the only people who wouldn't get behind that are the people you should avoid to begin with. So, like, there are always the possibilities of better ways to do it, but this is the one that I've found really works as a stable foundation, because you can start from that point and people will ask you more because they'll want to know how to avoid the evil people that they've been just tolerating their whole lives anyway. That's my belief. Like, what I want this sort of chat to be is I want it to be my guests talking with one another. So obviously as many people as are regularly willing to show up, the better, because then we can have a whole like big conversation about this with multiple perspectives, and it won't just be me. But like, I already know like where I generally come from on this sort of thing, and that's I'm an anarchist and I am anti-aggression. That's, you know, don't initiate force and don't be a ruler over other people without their consent, and that basically is redundant in my view. So, you know, I'm an anarchist, and that to me, other than my Chaos Emeralds, is all I need.
Fair enough, mate.
Personally, you know, I mean, everybody has their different approach.
Just a bird.
And that's the point. That is the main point. Everybody has their own way to follow. Everybody has their own way to succeed. They just need to find it, and they'll really struggle to in this kind of environment. But if they go voluntarism, Well, need I say more?
Well, and of course, if they do that, then you've got their audience. It's zeitgeist, yo. You get one person, then you get all those one person's one people, and then some of those one person's one people get all of their one person's one people, and it spreads. Read The Selfish Gene. Anybody who hasn't already, read The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. Understand what a meme really is, and that it's not just the image with text on it. And understand that you have the power in your hands to start your own cultural revolution now, today, with you in your neighborhood, in your class, in your society. Even if it's just saying to the people in your elementary school class, hey, maybe this is all fucked up, kinda, and we shouldn't be putting our hands on our heart to it before we're even legally old enough to sign a contract or vote for it. Maybe this system is fucked in some way that we can make better in the future if we're willing to divorce ourselves from it.
We gotta evolve.
Get their people.
We gotta evolve. This is how we will evolve if, as a society, as basically if you think of society as an organism in its own right, it needs to move past this constricted cage that we've constructed for ourselves, and it's going to be hard to do that. But it's something we got to break free from, or we're just gonna keep repeating the same stupid cycles.
It's something we got to break free from, or there will be rivers of blood flowing in the street once the elites enact the things on the Georgia Guidestones and reduce this close to 8 billion global population down to 500 million. You think it's bad now, collectivists? Just wait until you're on the wrong end of a government gun or bomb or biological attack or elf weapon or nuke. You will be fucked if you trust these people. That's the real message.
I know. And people are, I think, becoming aware of that.
Hopefully.
I mean, there's that whole QAnon thing, and I'll be very brief on this.
Fuck that.
Yeah, I have no idea what the fuck is going on with that anymore.
It's people believing immediately what they read on a message board. It's cunt-ass bullshit, in my view.
Well, there's odd coincidences, and when you've got patterns of that, it becomes unusual. And then there's those then there's all those indictments.
Yeah, well, you know what else is also something good to remember? It's good to remember that if you really truly wanted to get on board with the elites, if you really truly wanted to get the next generation who's hooked on the internet to start sucking the elite's cock, why not make it seem like the person in charge, which is a reality star host who's been affiliated with the Bilderberg Group and, his political, quote, opponents for the longest time, to be the front runner, to be the guy in charge of everything, and then get a bunch of people who are internet obsessed to think that fighting against certain people in the elites by the advice of a random anon online is going to somehow solve all of the world's problems. Don't be led around. At least wait until there's some sort of proof that this person is a person and not just an idea and a construct with a nice corporate backing, waiting for the QAnon movie to come out with all of its Inception style boom when it drops truth bombs. Fuck that corporate churned out bullshit. QAnon sucks.
Do you know what my personal fear is?
Are you convinced yet, listeners?
You know what my personal conviction is that QAnon is Project Bluebeam on a fucking shoestring budget.
Right?
It really is. I mean, they've made him. They're kind of trying to bring Trump as Lord and Savior, second coming of Christ, and it drives me crazy.
Exactly.
And they think that some insider is just going to be on their
no idea what any of these things are. I'm just voraciously Googling as you guys are talking.
Yeah, well, okay, so go down the rabbit hole and go down the rabbit hole and realize how fucking dumb it is.
Yeah, I mean, the rabbit hole itself is quite amusing because there is a lot of data there. That is the weird thing.
And a lot of bunk data along with it. funny enough.
But that is, and the guy basically said that was by design.
Oh yeah,
which is,
I was
and
only
he's
pretending
admitted
to be retarded.
He basically said from day one, this is a psyop, but he just never came out and said it.
Is this how you convince
It was so
people
obvious.
to join the libertarian movement, to join anarchy? Is this how you do this?
What, by telling them that QAnon's a fucking... No, that QAnon's a bunk conspiracy now, probably.
It's one of the ways. It's
Balance the probability.
I'm wondering...
You've got to dig into those kinds of things.
If I'm trying to convince people of anarchy and my solution is to get people on board with Trump, that's the wrong approach, Sonny.
That is the wrong approach. Isn't that what we were having part of the conversation we were having the other day, Jer? Somebody said, yes, exactly. Somebody said that one of the best ways to convince people of anarchy was to use the principles in the Constitution.
Bullshit! Holy bullshit.
Right? Wait a minute, I remember a post office in the Constitution.
That's weird.
You've got it's another.
But that's a conversation for another day.
And it's another conversation, I think. Yeah, because it's.
Well, I mean, what I can.
It's 3:45 here,
and also, he's not here to defend himself. So.
Well, what I can tell you is this: if he can get his ass on here next week, we can talk about how the Constitution is a con job designed to get people on board with an extension of the British monarchy and rulers along its bloodline without calling itself that. The Constitution is for cowards.
Personally, I find the Constitution is a new form of idolatry, but that's just my view.
My magic paper.
I don't know. The first time I've ever said anything about the Constitution, people just said, "But you're not American." So I'm like,
stay in your lane.
Okay.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, that's the.
You're only allowed to talk about the Spanish Constitution.
Oh my God, Bird! I swear to God, I'm gonna grab that cake and I'm gonna take it to you and shove it in your face.
Don't waste.
That's a really gentle way to do it. He can eat part of it that way. Why not just make it
I'm a gentle person.
Haven't you considered that I can fly?
So if I throw cake at someone, since it's a delicious thing, is that breaking the net? I don't think so.
Yes.
I think
that sounds like a tax.
It is.
So it wouldn't be a nice thing for me.
Wait, Nina.
That sounds like a tax argument. Like, well, you get police even though we steal your money. It's like, well, it's delicious even though I threw it at you.
Instead of throwing
if you do though, just bring a slingshot and shoot it piecemeal. Be an incrementalist.
Slice by slice.
Instead of shoving that cake up Bird's ass, I'm closer. Let's share that cake.
Who said anything about it going in my ass?
I said she should make you butt chug it.
We are.
Oh my God! I'm gonna make him boof.
Don't waste cake on Bird.
Boof the cake.
Boof the cake.
Like you can get to where I live. Like I'm on a boat. I can get to where you live.
I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat, motherfucker.
There we go.
I've been thinking that song in my head since he said. I have been thinking of that song in my head ever since he said he was on a boat.
Yeah, so you're doing this thing Sundays, right?
Yeah, every Sunday, and I don't know if it'll.
Can we make it a bit earlier next time, guys? Simply because.
What?
I'll never be able to make it ever again if it's too early.
Well, not too early. I'm just saying a little bit earlier. I mean, it started at 1 a.m. for me. If I want to do this on a consistent basis when I'm working, Sunday at 1 a.m. to 4 is probably not going to work.
Oh, get over it. Get over it, you red coat bastard.
So if we could start maybe a couple hours earlier, I'd at least be able to do...
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, we don't... This is the only time Lupinant and I will ever talk because our time zones are so fucked up.
I mean, am I gonna be in the next one? We don't know. Just tune in and you find out.
Nina's gonna be on the podcast, though, guys.
Yeah, I will.
She has a lot of problems she needs to air.
I'm the vaggest of them all. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, you know where to reach me if you want me to jump on any kind of conversations. Feel free to give me a shout. I'll try and make myself available at what random times I'm usually aware.
Yes. Just watch for the glow from my Chaos Emeralds. I'll show you the way.
Do you know that way?
Wow.
Okay, my brother.
All right, guys. It is 3:45. I think I'm going to have to call it a night.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Or a morning. All right.
Yeah.
Good night, y'all.
Sleep in a bit.
All right, be well, everybody. If you want to catch any of these people, hit them up on Twitter and/or G+ if they're lupinate. Just
Wait, 500 followers in my post feed. Just gotta get that out there.
Yeah. Well, hey, and,
I will put it
also,
to you now. You will not find me on Twitter.
And also, every one of you, everybody who comes onto my show, just remember you can send me your social links you want in the description, and I'll throw them in there.
All I have is my Twitter. That's all I care about.
All right. Well,
I can't be a YouTuber.
Well, that's all I need is to be able to point people in your direction.
At @Sprin_dragon.
There you go.
Tweets of 2018.
And you were, Nina?
I am at Estado Cida, which means stateside in Portuguese. So don't make a mistake.
And you, Lupinate?
Daniel Hatfield on G+.
Cool. And what about you, Bird?
At Birdarchist, follow me, listen to our podcast, Friends Against Government.
Oh, and also for me, sorry, mate, one other one is Steam it at Anarchic Wolf.
Cool. All right. Well, this seems like it was a success. If anybody's interested, just hit me up, and I welcome people of pretty much all viewpoints, as long as you're not some like degenerate Robotnik supporter. So just keep that in mind, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Woo!